Good morning, good afternoon, good evening and good night, wherever you are around the world. A very warm welcome indeed to you all for this, the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Endurance Series, opening round from the beautiful Monza Grand Prix circuit in Italy. My name is Paul Jeffrey, and once again I am absolutely delighted to welcome alongside me for this next epic 3-hour endurance, Mr. Lewis McGlade. Lewis, good morning to you, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, good morning. Good to be here, and we've got 3 hours of racing up ahead from the racing that we've had before over in the Asia Sprint Series. It could be we could have some pretty big names being made here. It's all a bit of fun, isn't it?
It is indeed. And Monza, what a circuit to host these GT3 cars. The temple of speed, incredible speeds, opportunities to overtake, and an accident never far away from the making due to the proximity of the barriers. 3 hours here, Lewis, is going to be a real test of driver skill, perseverance and patience, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits where you can be lulled into a false sense of security. It's not that complicated on a track map, but when you actually get to racing it, you've got a lot of downtime on this circuit. You've got a lot of time where you're just holding the throttle and you're just shifting up the gears. Now, what that does, it allows you to calm yourself down. That's when the mistakes happen, though. That's when firing it into a Scari, you take a little bit too much curb, and that's when you're taking a one-way trip to the barrier. It's all about eyes focused on a day like this. Especially, first round of a season, you're all trying to prove yourself. You're trying to find out who's going to be our championship contenders, and the only way to do that is by getting to the finish.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are so many opportunities for our drivers here today to get involved in incidents. Of course, our virtual fans trackside have all been in receipt of massive colourful flags, as you can see from those shots. I'm sure they're very excited for the virtual activity to kick off. And let's take a quick look at the entry list for this, the 3 hours of Monza Endurance. We've got JMX Phantom running a McLaren 720S GT3. Fadli Rakhmat and Avila Bahar are behind the wheel. Some of these names our SRO eSport followers will recognise from the Asia Sprint Series, and there's a few names new to us on our screen, so looking forward to see how they get on. In speed racing, have a Bentley Continental GT3. Jiateng Yang and Chen Zhou Gao are driving the number 12 machine. JMX Juniors of the Academy as well, running 2 cars, both Bentley Continentals. Mia Rose and Wee Wai Kit alongside Afik Farrell and Bernard Chan are driving the 2 Academy cars, number 21 and 22. Legion of Racers, very popular team, very fast drivers on board. Damon Woods and Luis Moreno are rocking the Mercedes AMG GT3. HPD Yas Pro Asia, again, great to see a Honda NSX being competitive in this series, so expect Sean Madison and Yugo Asaki to do well in the beautiful red Honda machine. Predator, Mavs Esport, Jay Yang and Lock Him Ho in a Lamborghini Huracan GT3 as well. Good spread of manufacturers. As always, another Legion of Racers car. This is one to firmly keep an eye on, is a number 889, a Mercedes AMG. Dylan Tan and Dika Ramamalana. Ramamalana, of course, second in the Asia Sprint Series and the champion in 2020. Expect that car to go very well, as well as the Laundry House Mercedes of Lady Racer Filippo Pachida and Andrew Lawrence, and the number 666 machine is another car very much expected, Lewis McGlade, to go well and be at the sharp end come the checkered flag in 3 hours' time.
Yeah, of course, we've got a lot of drivers that some might recognise from the Asia Sprint Series. I mean, you brought it up there, of course, Andika Ramamolana and Dylan Tan. Andrew Lawrenson was nearly challenging for third in the championship, took the race victory in the final round of the Asia Sprint Series, so is building in that name, and Filippo Pachida did actually a really good job that day in the final round of the season, dragging himself, I think, inside the top 10, I think she did it. But there are some great lineups. There are sort of 3 or 4 that we're really focused on that are going to be contending for race victory today. Obviously, our eyes are more focused towards the likes of JMX Phantom, of Laundry House, of Legion of Racers. But what that means is that whilst our eyes are focused in those directions, it's the perfect time for other teams and other drivers to make a name for themselves and show why they are the quality drivers on the grid that they are.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, it's a 3-hour endurance race. It's a very different mindset for our drivers than what we've seen in the traditional 60-minute sprint events. 3 hours, absolutely anything can happen. You need to be on point from the very second the green flag waves all the way through to the checker. Get caught up in traffic, make a mistake, lose concentration. Maybe you've got one driver that's slightly stronger than the other, because of course driver swaps will come into effect as well today, Lewis. It is very much a case of every single aspect of the team needs to be strong, doesn't it, Lewis?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you come into a circuit like this, which isn't that complex, it means that you've got to make the most of the small opportunities that you have around this track. We'll take a look around the circuit then as we come out of the Parabolica onto the start-finish straight. You can see in the slipstream, this is what we're going to see pretty much all the way throughout this race. People just trying to find the slipstream. It's a really long run from when we're starting the race until we get down to the Rettifilio. Heavy on the brakes and then watching out for the curbs, so you can't take too much of these. The sausages on the inside can spin you around very, very quickly, especially when you've got a car right at the rear end. You're going to get into big, big trouble around here. Curva Grande, just nice, smooth on the wheel. You've got to be using your fingertips around here, basically. Any extra speed scrubbed off by more wheel input than necessary. You're going to be going backwards. Not ideal. It's not a hard track to look after tyres on, but still, this is a chicane which will catch people out. The Rogier, Della Rogier, a very, very tricky chicane, mostly courtesy of the second curb. See a lot of people going off into the barrier on the left-hand side there. Into Lesmo 1, out wide, into Lesmo 2, really drops down here for Lesmo 2. A lot of camber into this corner, and the curb on the inside you can actually abuse a bit more than expected. Over onto the AstroTurf on the left-hand side, which can pitch you around if you're not careful, and then round Seraglio, down the hill, and then back up towards Ascari, which is probably one of the greatest sequence of corners in motorsport, fitted in to this sequence of track which is mostly straight. It's left, up over the curb, follow the right-hander all the way round, using a little bit of it, and then slam it over the left-hand side. That can pitch you off if you are not careful. But it's so important to get right for this run all the way down to Parabolica, of course renamed after Alboreto in modern times. However, we're still going to classify it as the Parabolica. It's the legendary name which is associated with the final corner here at Monza. Out of it, short lap, nothing too major, nothing too fancy, nothing too complicated, Paul, but it's one of those circuits which can catch you out if you're not careful.
It is indeed, and something else that's worth bringing to the viewer's attention, being an endurance race as it is and having so many straights here at Monza, fuel saving is going to be something that comes into play as well. Do you want to be the first car in the queue punching a hole through the air, or do you want to follow some of your rivals, use their slipstream, use less of your fuel on board, and that potentially could give you an extra lap or two and some more options in the pit stop strategy? Because, Lewis, of course, this is a race unlike the sprint series where we don't have a mandatory pit stop window, so it is very much down to the teams and drivers to decide when is the optimal time for them to come down pit lane and affect their strategy. So that's another interesting facet of this race that comes into play, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of one of those ones where you want to keep your options open throughout the running of the race. Sounds really, really simple and really easy, but it actually takes an awful lot of self-control to do it. You can't kind of push yourself to can't get involved in battles. You're racing with people, but then you have to kind of sit inside yourself and go, I'm not actually racing with anyone, just myself. You sit in the slipstream, you save the fuel, and even if you don't try and extend the stint too much past where they can go, you're going to make that pit stop slightly shorter. With every litre in fuel that you can keep in the car, by the time you come into that final pit stop, it's less fuel that you're putting in. We're not expecting too many pit stops. In fact, we're only expecting 2 pit stops throughout the running of the day, with it being a 3-hour race. A pit stop roughly at the end of the first hour and roughly at the end of the second hour. Of course, a little bit of movement either way on that one should open the door at least a little bit strategy-wise, but how they're going to play it, I don't necessarily know. The slipstream is so crucial around here that you kind of don't want to pit too far off strategy to make sure that you stay in it.
Exactly, and I think that's something that's also the teams are going to be learning as the race progresses. This is the first race of the season in the Asia Endurance Series, so this is a new experience for a lot of these teams and drivers in this particular championship. So we're going into a bit of the unknown into this race. It's a new experience for many of these drivers. Of course, they'll have done endurance racing throughout the course of their career in sim racing, but that only goes so far, doesn't it? When you're racing against these particular set of teams and drivers, you're not sure how they're going to react to the conditions, to the strategy. And there's an element of fluidity there, I think, in how the drivers will approach this race. But let's put that to one side for a moment and take a look at our starting grid here at Monza. On pole position is Fadley Rakhmat in the number 10 McLaren 720S that you see to your left hand side. We saw yesterday in the sprint series the McLaren is a very potent car here at Monza, very quick in a straight line, which of course is something that you need very much so at this track. Keeping him company on the front row of the grid is the Ferrari of Kei Sheng Huang in second position. We saw the onboard lap in free practice a little bit earlier in the broadcast. McLaren versus Ferrari, sound familiar? Anybody who watched the sprint series yesterday will be very aware of that one indeed. The second row of the grid is headed by Dylan Tan in third position. Tan, a driver we've seen much of in the Asia Sprint Series, both in the championship standings, so Dylan Tan, expect him to make progress as the race unfolds. Two Mercedes on row 2 alongside is Andrew Lawrenson for Laundry House. Lawrenson, again, another driver that has shown considerable amounts of pace every time we see him on track, but not necessarily blessed with the best of luck. So Lawrenson will be hoping for a clean encounter today at Monza and try to maximise the score for the Laundry House team. A very competitive environment indeed. He's racing with Felipe Bakida inside that car. In fifth position on the grid is Nabiel, the number 20 car. This is run by JMX Juniors, so we've got Dafa Nabiel and Sharakat Takuma sharing the McLaren 720S. Very nice livery indeed, actually, there we can see on the fifth place number 20 machine, and alongside him is Kin Long Lee in the number 999. The 999 is Kin Long Lee and Yatlan Law, and they're racing for Wacko's Flip Table Racing. And again, another car very, very popular amongst the crowds here in the SRO Asia Series, especially in the Sprint Series Championship that we've just concluded not so long ago. Going down into 7th position, we see the number 88 of Dane Woods in the Mercedes AMG. The number 88 car, of course, is Legion of Racers. Damon is sharing it with Luis Moreno, so expect that car to go very quickly indeed as the race continues. Alongside Woods is Sean Madison in the number 93 machine. Madison rocking the Honda HPD Yas Pro Asia car alongside Yugo Asake. And in 9th position, Sergei Mironenko driving for the number 888 machine. Again, that is another Honda NSX for the Oddbods, and he's sharing that car with Roland Smith.
Yeah, and behind that we get McLaren in a fantastic livery of the Octane Community Sim Sport car. Alex Bryan driving it with Daniel Hunter, qualifying just inside the top 10 before we get down to a sea of Bentleys. 11th position, we've got Chual there in the number 35 LOR Tarmac Esports car. Joining him was Arwin Taruna alongside Mia Rose, who might be a little bit further down the grid than we would have expected. With Kit inside that car as well. Also, their reserve driver, by the way, is Alistair Young. Just as a bit of a shout out there in the number 21, you can recognise there the Axel Motorsports livery, which would be they're in sim racing all over the place there alongside. So that is for the academy, and alongside them, their direct teammate in the number 22, Afik Farid and Bernard Chan alongside themselves in the number 22 car. The 546 lining up just behind that, Ben Floyd and Corey Sweet behind that wheel of the Mercedes Garatz racing car. Only 3 more cars left on the grid. The Bentley of the number 12, which is In Speed Racing, Jai Cheng Jiang and Chen Zong Go. Running out of the third to last position. The Porsche of Fujita in the number 39. That one alongside Yuki Shirakawa jumping in at last moment in the Success E-Speeds with GTS. Final car on the grid. And I'm going to say, I think that's a bit of a looker there in the 101. Do like myself a bit of a Lamborghini. That one, the Predator MAV's Esports car. Jay Yang and Lock Him Ho running out from the final position on the grid.
Fantastic stuff. And of course, this field in this opener for the Endurance Series, is that going to have any impact on the race strategy, do you think? I suspect traffic is going to be less of an issue than we've seen previous races.
It should be, but it kind of, in that sense, it means that there's nowhere to hide, which would almost put it as more pressure on. You think of it this way, right? If there is, the less cars there are, the less people there are to beat, almost as if there's more to focus on. You think of it, if it's just a 1v1, if there's just 2 cars on the grid, you only have to beat that one person, which on a sea of 40, you're just trying to beat that one person. It actually doesn't sound that difficult because you only got to beat one car, whereas the less cars you have, the harder it is to beat that one specific person because it's target fixation. Right now, though, we do have a lot of our big names, a lot of the ones that we were expecting to be at the front. Of course, JMX Phantom on pole position. Look backwards towards the 889 of Dylan Tan, of Andrew Lawrenson that are rolling off of that second row. And of course, we have that 118 alongside them on the front row, full pace racing. It's a pretty tasty front couple of rows of the grid. It's going to get pretty tight down into turn 1, and where there is nowhere to hide, you'd hope they're going to avoid a bit of an incident.
We'd hope so, but we've seen many times before this might be a 3-hour endurance race, but these drivers cannot afford to leave anything on the table at all. So it will be push, push, push from the second the green flag waves in a few moments' time. The drivers, of course, now circulating the track on their formation warm-up lap. They will roll onto the grid in 2x2 formation for a rolling start, as is tradition in the GT World Challenge Europe Series, including the Endurance and Sprint Championships that we've seen all across the world, in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia and in Great Britain as well. So it's great to see the Endurance Series. A delayed start to this championship, but we are here now and we are ready to race. I'm looking forward to this one, Mr. McGlade. I think despite the small grid, size doesn't always matter, and we're going to have a real intense fight at the front.
No, I commentated on a race around here at Monza a good sort of 3 or 4 months ago elsewhere in sim racing, and there was just 11 cars in it, and I went into it thinking this is going to be a boring race, it's going to be a terrible race, blah, 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 blah. Boy, did those 11 cars put on a show. Because around Monza you can do so with the slipstream and stuff, you do get pulled along. It does create a bit of a show, and I reckon around here, especially with some of the teams that we've got towards the front here, we're potentially in for a decent show. They are some great teams that have quality drivers, not just in their first driver, in their second driver as well. They are quality teams as a whole. They've also got the form book to go off, because with the European Endurance Series, we kicked that off here at Monza as well, so they can take a look at that and judge how the strategy was run on that day and how the winning strategy came out on top there. And so there's a lot that they can play with here to figure a right course through the 3-hour race.
There was indeed an interestingly, Ferrari was the car to have in the Endurance Series here at Monza. So let's see if that can be repeated once again today. So ladies and gentlemen, we're rounding the Alboreto curve, formerly known as the Parabolica. We're about to get started here in the GT World Challenge Esports Asia Endurance Series, the opening race of the championship at the Temple of Speed, the beautiful Monza Grand Prix circuit. The cars are lining up now in 2x2 formation, watching their speed, making sure they're staying under the mandatory limit. They'll be looking to the starting gantry for those lights to turn green, and so they do. The start has been a clean one from everybody. Avila Bahar on pole position, tries to retain that early race lead, but he's dropped down the order straight away. One of the Mercedes immediately looking to make the charge. That is Dylan Tan on the inside. Bahar on the far back now in 5th position. That is Couch and Hahn going round the outside now in the Ferrari. Takes the race lead. Bahar drops all the way down in a 3rd position. Mercedes making a rocket start from the 2nd row of the grid.
Yeah, they look pretty tasty in a straight line. It was Damon Woods who made a decent amount of progress to work up a couple of positions, and a few have been dropped. But look at this, as going on the attack already of Wang, who's taken the lead at the moment. But Dylan Tan is trying to fire on all cylinders to get through. Nearly cleared that position going down into the Rogier, but wasn't able to do so. Around the outside of the first part of the Lesmos, not able to make it stick. Back down to the inside of the second, still not to do so. I'm going to say Dylan Tan, though, he is looking hungry in the early stages. You might see a little bit of a difference in the background, by the way, because there is no Lawrenson, who has dropped down the order after an incident.
Andrew Lawrenson's bad luck continues in SRO competition. Lawrenson, of course, starting on the second row of the grid now on the recovery drive. But look here, this is going to be a ding-dong fight. Unexpected race leader in the Ferrari, the number 118 for Ku Shenghang in first position. Great start from second on the grid. Dylan Tan, though, in the grunt and go Mercedes, fancies his chances. A very powerful car in a straight line is the Mercedes AMG. Shows his nose to the inside through the parabolica, but that is more about filling the mirrors are hanging in front of him. Can Dylan Tan get the run through the final corner, down the monumental finish straight immediately in the slipstream of the Ferrari behind, using the straight line speed advantage of this Mercedes. Huang covers the inside. That leaves only one option for Dylan Tan coming down into the first chicane. That is the outside line. That's the danger zone. You do not want to be in that position, and wisely he thinks better of it, tries to get the cutback, allows the Ferrari to run deep into the corner. That wasn't effective, but now coming through the curve of Grande, the second opportunity presents itself to the outside. Once again goes Dylan Tan in the Mercedes. If he can hold on here, he'll be to the inside into the next chicane, which he is holding that line now. It's a case of who can break the latest of these two drivers. Dylan Tan has some confidence, gives a little love tap to the 118 as well, and takes the position, and that opens the door for Avila Bahar to try and make the recovery start. Third position will soon be second position through into Lesmo 1. Another little love tap to the Ferrari magnetic in these opening laps, but there we go. That is place taken, or is it? Ooh, the Ferrari holds on a little bit too long, and that is costly.
That is costly, and there we go, down even behind Kim Long Lee and Damon Woods as well, getting through. It was really, really important for Avila Bahar to make a position up there and get up into second, because he knows that Dylan Tan will be running away with it right now. For JMX Phantom, if they have aspirations to win this race, it's kind of, they need to get on with it. They can't allow that gap to build up 3 or 4 seconds, because Dylan Tan will run through. They do have to worry a little bit about fuel mileage, especially when they're in a bit of a world of their own. The Mercedes does like to drink its fuel. Ferrari does drink a fair amount of fuel itself, but you know they've got engine modes and stuff they can use. The Mercedes is a little bit more thirsty than some of the other cars, so Dylan Tan needs to be aware of that. That's why he's going to try and build a big gap and then start saving fuel from that point.
Yep, absolutely. These things will immediately start. Now the fight in the opening corners, the opening laps has started to wind down a little bit. There we see an Aston Martin, that's Kin Long Lee going to the inside into T1. Nice overtaking manoeuvre on the brakes, relegates the Mercedes down. That is Woods struggling, but he's on recovery drive now. Woods pushing the Aston Martin down the back straight. Can Woods find a way past? Once again, not quite got the overlap that he needs, staying firmly into the slipstream of the Aston Martin ahead. The Wackham's flip table machine, and Kin Long Lee on the defensive coming into the chicane. Woods looks to the outside, no room there, decides to hold his powder dry for a little bit longer. We saw very quickly a drive-through penalty for Andrew Lawrenson pop up on the screen and then rapidly disappear. So Lawrenson seems to be in the clear for now, although he's running in 17th position from that second row of the grid start. And Avila Bahar is very much the cork in the bottle in second position at the moment. Kin Long Lee trying to find a way past as well. Woods in fourth position, interested to buy into this fight. And now pole position man all the way down in fifth place. Some dramatic opening laps.
I will say with Lawrenson, the drive-throughs disappeared because it was served. I think they had made a jump start because it did pop up quite early. So I think there was a jump start to the laundry house machine, and they have served that one now down the order. It has been confirmed. Yeah, the 666 was given a drive-through penalty for jumping the start. Race Control do tend to remove the automated because there is an automatic system to give you penalties for jump starts. Tend to remove it so they can investigate it themselves. They've investigated it, and then that penalty's gone back on, and Lawrenson has gone through the pit lane to serve that penalty. Bahar, Long Lee going for a bit of a tight battle here. I don't think Damon Woods was fighting that one too hard. I think he wants to sit in the slipstream and save some fuel. Kin Long Lee, not so much.
Yeah, Long Lee goes to the inside once again. The best overtaking spot on the circuit into the opening chicane. Kin Long Lee to the inside, manages to keep the car on the track, runs very, very deep into the corner. That gives the McLaren an opportunity to get involved as well. Here we can see Woods once again in the heat of battle, side by side now with Avila Bahar through the Curva Grande, coming down into the second chicane. Woods on the inside, that's where you need to be, but runs out of road a little bit, and Avila Bahar decides he's had enough of being overtaken by some of his rivals on track, goes aggressive into the braking zone. That opens up the opportunity as well now, so this is great for Avila Bahar, from the defender to the attacker. Kinlong Lee on the outside, Bahar on the inside. This is game, set and match for the McLaren driver, takes the position away. Woods behind, trying to buy into this fight as well. Long Lee now in the danger zone. Contact, Kinlong Lee contacting the Aston Martin, straight to the scene of the accident. That is light contact with Woods, but a massive consequence now. Kinlong Lee in the gravel has to wait for the entirety of the field to make their way past, and Lewis in an endurance race, that kind of aggression, that kind of hard fighting, it's surely just too soon to be doing that.
Yeah, it was a little bit too much too early, and they were fighting probably more so than they could handle. As Mia Rose, look at this, rising up the order at the moment, now trying to get past Mironenko, who was racing yesterday in a Lamborghini, if memory serves, but in the European sprint. But around the outside, Mia Rose is going to go to try and steal a top five. I think that's just a little bit too wide though at Parabolica, and Mia Rose is going to have to hand the position back, but has assistance from behind as Farid, teammate between the two of them. They're going to work together in those two big Bentleys to try and work their way up the order. Damon Woods didn't really want to get involved too much in that battle, but it was just how crazy everything got going through Les Mode 2. It does provide the opportunity to return up the order for full pace racing in Huang, who we were riding on board with in practice. This is big stuff for them to recover some of their positions lost.
Yeah, it really is. This is now where you need to strike. And look here, this is Mia Rose. Fantastic, a sensational start for Mia Rose. Disappointed with the qualifying result, no doubt. Well outside of the top 10, but she's recovering in fine style. Currently, 5th position, as Lewis very much said, for a teammate. Just separated by Sergei Mironenko in the Honda. So a good drive from Mironenko as well to get that Honda up in a 6th position. A very striking livery as well for the Japanese machine. But Mia Rose, 5th position so far, and continuing a forward charge. The number 21 machine very much on form in these opening few minutes of this race, and this is exactly what the likes of Mia Rose needs to do. You cannot afford to be buried down in traffic in the early stages of the race, because that will give too much of an advantage to the cars ahead of you. And yes, this is a 3-hour endurance race, but you cannot afford to lose 10, 15, 20 seconds to your rivals. That will become incredibly difficult to recover. So Mia Rose recognises that fact and is charging, and now she can see those all-important podium spots ahead.
Yeah, for the Axel Sports Academy, the having two cars on the grid that are both rising up the order in equal fashion, this will be a pretty good moment for them. As I say, I mean, they've got quality drivers. Mia Rose, we know, is a great driver here on ACC. To see the pace and potential, taking on a Bentley and stuff around here, they're finding their way through it. It's really, really interesting to see how much further they can get into this race, and how much further, how much higher they can go. Is a podium out of the question? I think by how much progress they've made right now, no, definitely not. They are well in contention for it, especially as Dylan Tan has a 6-second lead at the front, but everyone else behind that is pretty chock-a-block and tight, as Legion races in yet another car of Chual behind Fujita.
Yeah, this is some good racing down the running order. Almost contact between the two of them, but they just about survive. Chuao now goes to the inside. A little bit of a push and shove, but that works for the Legion of Racers. Bentley driver, he gets the deal done well before the braking zone into the next corner, and Fujita maybe will feel a little bit hard done to by that overtaking manoeuvre. I'm sure the stewards will be checking it out as well. At these kind of speeds on a track like Monza, even the lightest of contact between two cars can end in absolute disaster. But luckily, everybody got through that one all nice and safely, and Nigel Chuao now in 12th position for Legion of Racers. Next on the list is Hunter in P11 in the 567 McLaren.
Yes, yeah, I actually think that might have been a mistake, a solo mistake from Fujita. We kind of lost it behind the advertising hoardings. But I actually think that it was the Porsche driving onto the grass, which grass, famously not the smoothest surface to be running a race car over. Very, very bumpy. It was just throwing the right-hand side of the car up and down and unbalancing it. And that was what allowed the car to pass of Chuao. So I kind of think it might have just been a solo issue, that just allowed the overtake. So, I mean, a bit of an odd one to see them sort of leaving two wheels on the grass, but they're just trying to maximise everywhere on the racetrack, inside and exit of corners. Of course, for the exit of the corners, the exit of the corner is far more important than the entry, and so if you're able to smooth that side of the corner out as much as possible, then go for it, but clearly a little bit too much there.
Yeah, very much a momentum circuit here at Monza. If you're a few kilometres per hour slower than is optimal on corner exit, that is going to pay you big time down the following straight, so you need to get all the speed you possibly can out of these corners for the long run down the straights. And Damon Woods was a man who would very much like to find a little bit more speed in the 88 Mercedes, currently in third position, but has our pole sitter for company in the 118 Ferrari. And at this moment in time, Woods doesn't look to have the pace match of the Italian machine behind him, Huang in fourth position, harrying the back of that bright yellow Mercedes. Meanwhile, Avila Bahar, second position, quite comfortable at this stage in the race, and Dylan Tan to the tune of 6 seconds in the lead after 6 laps. A sensational opening start to this race, and Dylan Tan, everything is very firmly falling his way at this stage. We've got plenty of racing still to go. 2 hours, 47 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, and it could be all about fuel mileage right now. With a 5.9 second gap, there is plenty of time to save fuel in that Mercedes, but knowing that it's a little bit thirsty, kind of need to get on the start of that now. I'm sure they're absolutely on top of it. And just to keep you in the loop, by the way, they can't just go for an infinite amount of time. There is a 65-minute stint limit here in the Asia Endurance Series, so they will be having to pit as a 65-minute, as a complete, that is the longest stint you can do. That is from the start of the race to pit lane entry, and then from pit lane exit to pit lane entry again. So that's the kind of length they're dealing with. There is plenty of time to save fuel, but again, if you only are taking it to 60 minutes, if you're only taking it to the next 60 minutes and everyone else can find an extra 5 minutes on each stint, then that's 10 minutes at the end of the race. But it's not only that, but it's the shorter pit stops as well, which will add in even more time. It's why saving fuel in this style of racing is so critical.
And I think that's one of the fascinating aspects of endurance racing, isn't it? When you say saving fuel, as Mia Rose gets a drive-through penalty. So Mia Rose in the 21, 5th position. We were just commenting how competitive the opening rate part of this race has been for Mia Rose to run all the way up in 5th position from 13th, I think it was, on the starting grid. A drive-through penalty. That is going to be a massive penalty for that car to serve. Really going to drop Rose all the way down to the back of the grid. So big shame there. Once it assumes that is something to do with track limits, it'll be produced by the game. So Mia Rose, big loss there in 5th.
Is actually to do with an incident between the 21 and the 35. So there has been an incident between them and the LOR Tarmac Esports car. So into the chicane on the first lap apparently, and that's where Mia Rose has picked up that penalty. So we were bigging them up. We were saying about how the Axel Academy had been doing so well in the first 15 minutes of this race, but unfortunately for them, a drive-through, it's not going to drop them necessarily out of the race, but when you're dealing with a grid like this, that's going to be a pretty hard hit. They can still score points, no doubt, but I think that even in the early stages now, that's the podium chance done. They are already into the pit lane. Mia Rose knew that one was coming and straight in.
Yeah, that's a real shame for the 21 machine. Of course, they've got another car in the field that moves up to 6th position with Farad behind the wheel, 22. So all is not lost for the Axel Esports team, but Mia Rose will serve that drive-through penalty. Of course, she does not need to stop in a box. She'll just get the car down to the pit lane speed limit, run all the way through the pit lane and then get back up to speed again. So there is still plenty of time to recover this and score good points. But as you say, Lewis, the fight for a podium position very much now an outside bet, shall we say, for the number 21. Let's have a look at Daniel Hunter, the 567, currently in that 10th position. We're looking here. This is Daniel Hunter, beautiful looking McLaren 720S. He has got Yang just ahead of him in 9th position and Osaka in the Honda in 8th place. So that's forming into quite a tasty battle for the lower points paying positions at this early juncture in the race, at least. Just to quickly update you on Mia Rose, she comes back out in 16th position, still ahead of Andrew Lawrenson that had his dramas early in the race, but last of the unimpeded runners, shall we say, is Mia Rose, now 10 seconds away from the back of the pack. So keep an eye out on that one progressing as she looks to make the recovery drive.
Yeah, I think Lawrenson was one of the ones that was caught up in that incident, and the one that Mia Rose was causing. I think then was sort of spun around at the end of it as Chual was coming over the circuit. I've not seen it, so I can't quote on that one too much. Lawrenson, though, was dropped back in that, but then also had a drive-through penalty for jumping the start. It looked like an excellent start, but it was a jumped start, so nearly took the lead actually down to T1. And so, yeah, way down the order, unfortunately, for Lawrenson. Still behind Mia Rose, although now has someone to tango with. Now spying on the 3.7 second gap and thinking, if I can close that down, at least I've got someone to play with, at least for the next sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes. We'll see what happens over the final parts of this stint and see where people can battle their way through. We've still got 40 minutes left of this first stint, actually a bit more than that, more like 50 minutes if they take it all the way up to the 65. So there's still plenty of time for them to save fuel. I'm going to say, though, for some of the Mercs, especially when they're running by themselves, they just don't have the time and space to save fuel. They're, you know, obviously, whilst you've got mixed modes and stuff, you've got your own driving that you can do. Nothing is better for fuel saving than slipstream.
Absolutely, and that sometimes lends itself then to the strategy of, if you've got nobody around you to play with, just push to the absolute maximum in this early stage and see what happens later on in the race. There might be traffic, you might suddenly find yourself in close proximity to somebody on the racetrack for track position. So just push at this early stage and then work out what you're going to do about your strategy later on. Just going back to Mia Rose, Andrew Lawrenson, the smart play now, Lewis, isn't it, is for these two, should they come together on racetrack a little bit closer over the course of the next 10 minutes or so, is to work together, not to fight each other, to use the slipstream, to share the speed between themselves and try and find a way to close up on the pack ahead of them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Especially at this point, like I say, you want to work together with the groupings that are around you. You don't want to kind of shoot yourself in the foot. This will be coming up. It's not been dished out just yet to Damon Woods, but there will be a drive-through penalty to car 88 for avoidable contact. So that's the third drive-through that we've got in the first 20 minutes of the race. So clearly quite a lot's been going on, and Damon Woods would be the latest recipient of it. We'll drop him down into the clutches of Mia Rose down the order, and then they'll have to fight their way back up. Bit of a shame. There it is, dished out now. It's a bit of a shame, that.
It is, and didn't we say at the start of the broadcast that the wise move here at Monza, a 3-hour endurance race, a relatively small field, is just stay out of trouble? And already, everybody seems to be in trouble. So our wise words have not been heeded by these drivers. But that does make for a little bit more interest out on the racetrack, doesn't it, Lewis, as we watch these drivers try and recover their way back up the order with plenty of pace to spare as well.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to stay out of trouble, well, that sounds really stupid, is to lead the race and run away, which Dylan Tan's been doing. And as far as we can see, there's nothing being flagged for race control they're doing. It's just about staying within track limits. Of course, the number 10 of JMX Phantom dropped down into the pack, had to rise back up. Now they're in second spot. They're just more keeping their eye on the sort of... It's been fluctuating around 6 seconds. It's been down to about 5.5. It's been up to around about 6.3. It's kind of just jumping up and down around there. It's not really consistently getting bigger or smaller. It's just hovering around the same sort of place. With them being on pole position, though, that you know that the JMX Phantom car has plenty of speed behind the wheel to try and close up to Dylan Tan when they decide to fire the missile, so it were. You just got to kind of hope that no one, that at least neither of them two, pick up anything from race control. Still need to pick out a lot of what happened in those open laps, because clearly there was a lot.
Yeah, if the penalties are anything to go by, that does suggest we've had a few dramas that we've not seen during the start of the live pitches. Damon Woods, does he jump down pit lane? No, he elects to continue for a little longer. That is allowing Huang in fourth position to get another good slipstream. And actually, this is bad news for Damon Woods. If he starts to find himself embroiled in a bit of a scrap with a Ferrari, which he is indeed coming down into the chicane, Woods will recognise that the Ferrari has got the clean air, has got the racing line, takes that position. Any kind of fights like this are going to slow Damon Woods down, so maybe he needs to think about going and serving that drive-through penalty sooner rather than later in the Legion of Racers machine. But maybe the fight at the front, as you say, it's kind of settled down in and around the 6 second mark now between first and second positions. Strategy is starting to play out now. They're starting to think what do I need to do to get to the checkered flag in the quickest way possible? Fuel saving. We'll talk a lot about that over the next 2 hours and 39 minutes, I am sure, as we're looking at Yugo Asaki now, 8th position for HPD Yas Pro Asia. Asaki has got Jiasheng Yang just behind him in 9th position, so the big Bentley in the camouflage livery trying to find a way past the Honda, and that is Farid in the Mercedes, that's Floyd in the Mercedes, just a little further in front. So the Hondas starting to lose a bit of lap time at this stage in the race.
Yeah, well, let's just see if there's going to be a move here, because Zhang going around the outside, it's going to give the outside to Ascari, and that's not normally the smartest move. It takes a lot of bravery to do so, but Asaki's leaving it down the inside, doesn't fight it into the apex. Smart move from Yugo Asaki, treating it, weirdly enough, like an endurance race. Zhang goes through. Zhang's made a massive mistake, though. He's off into the gravel. There's the first one, bitten by Ascari, just as Asaki let him through. That was a massive mistake from Jiang, and now he's going to drop right the way down the order, behind even potentially Kin Long Lee, who might try and make a move down into Parabolica. I think that must have just been too much curb on the left-hand side, because the rear end had just completely dropped off that Bentley.
Yeah, we've all been there, and that is great driving actually from Asaki, recognising the fact he's in an endurance race. There is no point getting too aggressive at this early juncture, and Jiasheng Yang trying, making the pass, and then pushing just that bit too hard in the big Bentley Continental. We know that this car can eat the curbs with comfort, but in the Ascari, it is so easy to unsettle the car, and away and around you go, and that is exactly what happened to Jiasheng Yang in 14th position now for the number 12. Big time loss, a lot of recovery to do, but Yugo Asaki very wise to what was happening around him, just minimising time loss, making no mistakes, and he retains that 8th position.
Like I say, treating it like an endurance race is just not really getting involved in a fight which is unnecessarily risky. Jiang going around the outside there was always going to throw it in, was always going to try and make that move stick. And so in that sense, if you're on the inside, I mean, create your own destiny, just back out of it, not allow that to happen, just let them have it. And it obviously worked out perfectly fine in the sense that Jiang had that mistake, is what it is. Back down to Chuao, by the way, who had got through on Hunter not too long ago. I remember that Hunter was inside the top 10. Those two have switched around. Obviously, they're back inside the top 10, courtesy of Zhang's mistake there. But you can see there with Chuao driving with, I think we always bring this up when we see Chuao driving with a VR on, which, I mean, an endurance race, to be fair, if they're only aiming to do a stint or two, if it's not that hot, it's actually okay. In the middle of summer, that can be problematic to its own degree. Can see has got a fan, though, to cool him down nicely, which is not too bad. Yeah,
that's a wise move when racing in VR. Since we last commentated in the Asia Series together, I've actually purchased VR myself and got back on the wagon, so to speak. So Chow doing great work to actually get a competitive enough frame rate to be able to use VR in ACC, as Woods now jumps down pit lane and serves that drive-through penalty eventually. So we'll see his name dropping down the running order. But the Legion of Racers driver Nigel Chower, with virtual reality, it is such a big difference that makes to the driving experience. You've got so much more visibility. You can see him looking over his shoulder, through his wing mirrors, through his rear view mirror as well. You're really immersed in the cockpit of the car, and the ability to look around yourself to see where your rivals are in comparison to you out on the track, and to the depth perception as well, to be able to get such a good feeling of how fast the car's going, how far away the corner is, how deep and close you can get into the apex, is such a big thing when racing in virtual reality. And if you can cope with the heat, you can cope with the discomfort, so to speak, of having the VR headset strapped to your eye line, that can actually be very, very powerful tool in terms of racecraft on track alongside other drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I unfortunately I've not raced with VR.
Come to my house, get yourself up to the north of England, and when you like, give me a shout and we'll have a blast.
Yeah, I thought you'd been avoiding me, mate. You avoided me at Donington.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you my address. I'm just going to say come to the north of England and ask around for Paul Jeffrey. It'll be fine.
Yeah, ask around for a man in a very loud shirt. Yeah, gotcha. Gotcha. No, it obviously helps a lot with spatial awareness and stuff. You're sat in the car. It's kind of like you're very much a part of it. Whilst you don't have the G-forces throwing you around to tell you what's going on, it's still the idea that you would be able to tell exactly where everything is helps enormously in close quarters combat. At the moment, though, Chuao going on potentially the attack, a bit more of the defence to Hunter as well behind, not making the move on Asaki, not allowing Hunter to pass. Bentley clearly fast enough in a straight line, but it does seem, though, which is not something I would have expected to say, at least maybe it's just drive off of the Parabolica. Asaki in that Honda looks actually all right in a straight line. It's not normally a car we necessarily associate with decent straight line speed, but seemed all right there.
I would suggest actually that maybe Asaki and Hunter behind as well both seem to be a little bit more potent in a straight line, and maybe if you're Nigel Chow at this stage, is it worth allowing Hunter to get past and start to challenge the Honda ahead, let those two squabble and then pick up any pieces or crumbs that may have been dropped from the table? It's an interesting idea if Chow goes wide, catches the grass, doesn't really lose too much time from that one, but what would you do in this situation, Lewis? Is it something you want to continue to fight out, or is it sometimes better to let others play and you pick up the pieces?
It's not an easy one. It's to be honest, a lot of the time I tend to leave the couple of cars. If I'm not sure if I can clear both of them, you tend to just leave the cars to do what you're doing, especially if, and this is the kind of important thing, because coming into this, they all know their pace, right? They know that running around the circuit, I know what lap times I'm aiming for. If I'm already hitting those kind of lap times, there's two people ahead of me, then there's no point in me trying to attack to get through, because all I'll do is I will get through and then set exactly the same lap times. Only that'll be the same lap times in clean air, which sounds great, but in this, not so much. If you can be setting those times whilst in a bit of slipstream, while saving that bit of fuel, it's better off to sit in your current scenario and play the long game. Speaking, by the way, of playing the long game, has anyone noticed the gap for the race lead? It's come down 2 seconds since the last time we checked. Dylan Tan dropping back down into the clutches of Bahar. It's now 4.4 seconds as the number 10 is closing in.
Ooh, that one is starting to pick up, getting exciting at the head of the field. We'll be able to keep our eye on that one. Sif Bahar has pace, or maybe it was a mistake from Dylan Tan, could even be strategy coming into play. Let's keep half an eye on that gap over the course of the next 5 or 10 minutes time. See if Bahar has anything left in the tank to start bringing the gap down to our race leader Dylan Tan. Nigel Chua that we're looking at the moment, 8th position still in the Legion of Racers Bentley Continental GT3. The sandwich between the Honda and the McLaren, 3 very, very different GT3 race cars indeed, but able to race together with competitive lap times thanks to the balance of performance that is in effect today, as we're seeing Hunter going grass tracking in the background but manages to keep the car on the racetrack. Takuma in 10th position as well in a second McLaren, the number 20 machine, not too far away from becoming involved in this three-way battle. And we've said this before, I think, Lewis, but I really do think it's worth repeating. Isn't it fantastic to see such different machinery sharing the same piece of tarmac and competitive with each other as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of, we've seen this before quite a few times across all sorts of racing and ACC, where you get all of the teams across the sim racing world that all come together and then they all pick the best car, which it can be the best car by 10th of a second. They all pick one car. It's boring, isn't it? Whereas in here, we've got a colourful grid filled with loads of different cars as Chuao pulls out of the slipstream there of Osaki. And as soon as it started punching its own air, it just didn't have the straight line speed to get by what is quite clearly a nice aerodynamic Honda of Osaki. So no way to pass at the moment from Chuao. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Look at how many different cars we've got up there. With a Mercedes leading, then a McLaren, then a Ferrari, then a Honda, then a Bentley, then another Merc, another Honda, a Bentley, a McLaren. It's great. It is really, really great. And especially when you alluded there that Takuma's rejoining this battle. But don't forget that Kin-Long Lee has had issues throughout this race, and we know that Aston Martin's got a bit of pace in it in that 999 car. That'll probably be a part of this battle in no time as well. So expect to see another car join the phrase of the top 10 battle.
There we go, there's a mistake there from the Honda. That opens the door to the Bentley Chua down the inside into the Lesmo. The Honda tries to hang it round the outside, does a good job, does Asaki to keep the car on the racetrack. Now it's a drag race down the straight. We know the Honda is quick indeed. He's got the inside as well for the Ascari, so he's in the premium position. Hunter trying to buy into this one in the McLaren as well, and Chua does not find a way past Asaki. Asaki made a mistake, got too wide, but uses the power of the Honda NSX GT3 to hold on to track position. And now this is the opportunity for the McLaren at the back of the shot. That is Hunter in the yellow machine. He's all over the rear of the Bentley, goes to the inside into Alboreto. Hunter around the outside. He'll try and switch the car back onto the optimal racing line, use the slipstream, use the big hole in the air that has been punched by that Bentley to drag him down into the first chicane, but it looked like it was going to get spicy. But now it's back to as you were. Does Hunter have enough straight line speed? Yes, he does. If I was Nigel Chua now, I'm thinking about allowing this car past. No point fighting too hard, because look how quickly Takuma has got himself into the fight, and I think he's about to concede position. No, he's not. Fights on the brakes into the chicane, side by side. Be careful not to make contact. No, they don't. Well done, both drivers there. Nigel Chua on the inside. We've got Hunter trying to scare the Bentley off of the racing line. He's in a suboptimal position around the outside through the curve of Grande, but he's holding on is the McLaren 720S. That will give him the inside into the second chicane. Now Nigel Chua has got to give up on this one, surely. No, he doesn't. Squirreling under braking. Good bit of driving there from the Nat 35.
And Osaki was watching that in his mirrors thinking, oh, thank you so much, lads.
Yes.
Just pulled away massively. 1.3 seconds now is that gap. Whether it will come down, this will really be a big indication of the pace of the chasing pack. If they can close that gap down once more, it shows how much faster they all are. It could very well be a five-way battle for this seventh spot. Once again, Hunter's lost a little bit of time. We're on board with the JMX Junior car of Takuma, who's trying to find a way through. Hunter's being given chance to roll through Ascari naturally following his own line, but you cannot forget that joining this battle behind is Kinlong Lee. So another car has rejoined this, and that car's been backwards before and has rejoined, has gone back up into this position. So the 999, they'll be pretty hungry. I don't think they'll be waiting around to the same level as everyone else. Also, can I just say how quick that gap between Chua has disappeared to Asaki? It's already gone.
Wow, that is interesting. So we've got very, very different levels of pace at this stage in the race. Asaki clearly not the fastest of this little trio of cars, and Takuma, while that squabbling is taking place, is now very firmly in this fight. Kinlong Lee as well immediately goes for the overtaking manoeuvre, shows his nose nice and early, not alongside enough to make that overtake. Very, very good is the Aston Martin on the brakes, to the tune of having to try and get out of it a little bit for fear of making contact with the rear of Sakukat Takuma's JMX Junior number 20 machine. A very nice livery there on the 720, but here we go again. Kinlong Lee back on the attack again, showing his nose, thinks better of it, decides to give it another go into the chicane. Last of the late breakers on the inside, takes that position. Takuma decides enough is enough and gives that one away to the Aston Martin. And very much as Lewis McGlade said, the number 999 machine is charging. Once again, a mistake for the Honda. This is Nigel Chua's opportunity again. We've seen this one before, but Chua down the inside, a bit of a hip and shoulder on the Honda. That is Nigel Chua's position taken now. Leon Asaki has dropped down into 8th position. What a manoeuvre. Can he fight back?
Oh, I don't think so. This is going to be bold to try it around the outside of Ascari, but I think Asaki was looking for it. Backs out of it, though, around the outside, allowing Nigel Chua to hang on to 7th position, so has gained that one. I don't think it's necessarily done, though, because we saw the straight line speed of that Honda is plenty punchy enough to try and get back involved in the mix. If they leave it for too long, though, then it's just going to allow Chua to sort of build this gap to try and run away. Behind all this, by the way, this is not the only battle that we've got going on the circuit. Fujita is just trying to hang on from Jiang as well, which is not too far off the rear end of this battle. Also, Lawrenson has got through on Him Ho. Same with Mia Rose now. They were all separated, all three of them, by 0.2 of a second, crossing the start line to start the lap they're just about to finish. Incredibly close for all kinds of positions up and down this grid. Chua, though, hanging on down into the Rettifilio to start yet another lap here at Monza. And this battle really is a five-way fight. I mean, to be fair, I'm not even necessarily going to rule out the idea of Fujita and Jiang joining this battle at some point in the near future.
Yes, these cars continue to squabble. They're losing time overall to those around them, and this is a ding-dong fight. Nigel Chuao now is the leader of the train, 7th position, but he does not have the straight line speed, it seems, of Yugo Asaki in P8. But Asaki making a couple of mistakes now. That is what's caused the overtaking manoeuvre. Hunter now fighting to find a way past. Kin Long Lee, 10th position. In the points paying positions is King Long Lee, and he's hungry to move up in the 999. Machine Takuma drops down into 11th place, as you say. Fujita and Yang in 12th and 13th. Not a million miles away from joining into this fight as well. We're getting dangerously close to the pit stop window as well. Just a few 20 minutes or so away, 25, 30 minutes away from thinking about making the first stop. Nigel Chua will be trying to break away. Meanwhile, look at the front of the field. The gap between Dylan Tan and Avila Bahar, 2.7 seconds. That one's very much hotting up as well.
Yeah, it's closing in. Did get a word in my ear a little while ago that Dylan Tan has moved it into a slight fuel-saving mode. The problem is with the fuel-saving mode is on the Merc, and I do remember, because obviously we brought this up a little bit earlier, is that a lot of these cars, you do have different engine modes. It's all down to, though, how large the jump is between, for example, Mix 1 and Mix 2. If your Mix 1, in this case, is your racing one, that's the engine firing with full power. You move it onto Mix 2 and it's your slight fuel saving mix. Some cars have a little bit more than others, and the jump between those two, that's what creates the viability, because you don't want a massive jump. You just want to be able to turn it down just a little bit to allow you to still do decent lap times without basically switching off the car. And if memory serves with the Mercedes, it's a large jump between Mix 1 and Mix 2. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, and I think that's why some of that gap went down quite quickly, just because the mix mode was switched, allowed that gap to come down. Put it back up again, saved a little bit of fuel, and there we go. Oh, Asaki was going for a move, and now it's just allowed Hunter to get involved in the mix. And again, whilst the old battle, it's now allowed Chuao to pull away. Was nearly under attack and now has a bit of clean air.
Yeah, this is sensational stuff from all of our drivers here, pushing to the absolute limit. Yugo Asaki, as you see, another small mistake that has brought Hunter and Kin Long Lee into the fight. There we go. Kin Long Lee now starts to make an overtaking manoeuvre. Woods goes firmly to the inside to defend Long Lee around the outside. Another driver running virtual reality is Daniel Hunter, so he'll be very aware of what is happening around him. He'll be very aware that Kin Long Lee has made a storming recovery drive and clearly has plenty of pace in that 999 machine. So Daniel Hunter under pressure, but attacking again. Asaki. Hunter now in the inside into Alboreto, nothing doing there, has to form back in line again. Asaki runs very, very wide indeed. This is going to be massively costly for Yugo Asaki as he compromises corner exit down the start finish straight. This is Daniel Hunter's opportunity. Kin Long Lee tries to buy into this one as well. 3 wide on the run down into the first corner. Who's got the more horsepower? The Aston Martin to the inside seems to be the quicker car at this stage. Kin Long Lee now into the braking zone for T1, slots himself ahead of Daniel Hunter behind Yugo Asaki, and that is a risky but very, very well executed overtaking manoeuvre by Kin Long Lee.
Oh, I think Chuao also might have made a mistake, because he was a lot further ahead than what that is showing. So I think he's made a bit of an issue down the Rettifilio. The gap there that was pulled at the start-finish line said it was 1.9 seconds. It's down to 0.6. So Chuao making a bit of a mare of the first chicane. Will say, do like Dan Hunter's rig there. Really good to see, of course, a bit triple screens, fair enough. Obviously, as you were saying there, running the VR setup right now, which you can even kind of see there on the screen, because you can actually see what's happening on the screen. You can see what he's seeing, how much he's looking around. When he was looking at the mirrors, seeing about Kin Long Lee coming, you could see Kin Long Lee coming through. There you go, look, constantly looking around, seeing into his mirrors and judging the distance. It's so helpful, because obviously running a virtual mirror is not ideal in all circumstances. Asaki, though, just trying to hang on from Kin Long Lee. That was super tight down into Ascari, and Kin Long Lee was nearly pushed off the road.
Yeah, really, really aggressive stuff from Yugo Asaki. He's finding himself struggling a little bit at this stage in the race. Yugo Asaki now is the man at the front of this queue in the Honda NSX GT3. Kin Long Lee, hungry as hungry can be to recover as much ground as humanly possible. Now we're riding on board with Takuma, 11th position. Just ahead of us is Daniel Hunter, Kinlong Lee. We can't quite see him, it's obscured by the back of the number 5, 6, 7 McLaren 720S. Yugo Osaki will firmly be on the defensive for the run. Down into the chicane has the Aston Martin GT3 got enough straight line speed? Not at this stage in the race, so Yugo Osaki survives for at least a few more corners, but runs deep again. Osaki under pressure, making small mistakes, running deep into corners, and Lewis, you cannot afford to do that at this circuit.
No, I mean, with it being, straight into chicane, around curve, straight into chicane, around curve, momentum is everything around here, and if you're messing up one little part of that sequence, it does cause a lot of problems. But look at this from Kinlong Lee down the inside of Osaki. It's going to be a little bit of contact, and I think Osaki's going to be thrown over the chicane. They've gone off. They're all over the place, and look who's come through the middle of all of that. Takuma has picked basically all of it up, and I don't quite know why they were fighting that hard. I think Osaki really kind of needed to just back out of that one a little bit. Kinlong Lee was there. We'd have to take another look at that one at some point, I'm sure, after the broadcast potentially. But Kinlong Lee and Osaki coming to blows, Hunter getting involved with that a little bit as well, when Takuma goes +3 in one chicane.
Yeah, that has worked out so well for Takuma. Here we go, Long Lee again now, trying to recover. We've said that one before, and I'm sure we'll say it again, but Long Lee immediately finds a way past Daniel Hunter to back into 9th position. Just ahead of us, that is Takuma, that made his way through all of that drama. Considering the amount of contact and the fact that 3 cars were off the racetrack, in reality, they did well to not lose significant amounts of time against each other. So that fight continues, albeit a few yards further down the road than one would have expected just a lap ago. And Kinlong Lee, 9th position. Daniel Hunter in 10th position. Yugo Osaki, the aggressor potentially in that move, drops down in a P11. And Fujita buying himself into this fight as well, with Yang just behind. So this fight, just like Lewis predicted a few laps ago, is starting to get more and more members involved into the race. But Nigel Chua will be laughing, clapping and dancing. 7th position, and quite a bit of free air now to this squabble that is ongoing in the lower reaches of the top 10 positions.
Yeah, superb stuff for Takuma, and also great stuff for Fujita to still hang on from Jiang behind. I will say, hopefully we do get another view, but with that instant, I mean, they were perfect, because I know this is one thing that we picked up. They were side by side going into the corner, and you could argue that Kinlong Lee kind of missed the apex just a little bit and created the contact. But at that point, to be perfectly honest, should potentially have just skipped the chicane and just got out of it a little bit to avoid that. It's kind of like the pride of trying to stay on the racetrack. Sometimes a little bit too much can be to the detriment of all runners in that, and yeah, it just wasn't great. Either way, 1.6 seconds now is the gap between the race leaders. Bahar is closing down on Dylan Tan, so it is coming down more and more and more, and you kind of think going into the pit lane sequence, it's going to be potentially under a second. So we've got to clarify with the pit lane sequence that we're talking about. In 16 minutes, realistically, once we hit the hour mark, we're going to expect to see a few drivers into the pit lane. They can stay out all the way up until an hour and 55 left to go in this race. It's a 65-minute stint window, so there is a little bit of time for them to play around this, but more so we're expecting to kind of pit in. I'm going to say most will be in the first lap after the hour sequence. They'll all come down to pit lane, and it'll be a little bit busy in there, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's it. Something that we will find out in around 15 minutes and change or so. So let's have a quick look at the running order. 24 laps in the book, 2 hours and 15 minutes left to go in this 3-hour endurance race, the opening round of the GT World Challenge Asia Endurance Series. We've got Dylan Tan in our race lead in the number 888 and the number 889, 1.2 seconds ahead of Avila Bahar in second position. Huang in the Ferrari from pole position to third place on the racetrack, a further 5 seconds in arrears at the moment. We've got Sergei Mironenko having a quiet race. Meanwhile, Fujita makes contact with the bike of Chang. Both drivers just about get through that one. Dylan Woods, Woods start again in 88th number 88, trying to buy himself into this one as well. 14th on the racetrack, following some dramas in the opening stages of this race. So that one is hotted up indeed for 12th, 13th and 14th position so far for Jeter, making contact in the Porsche under pressure from Woods behind. But we're going back to the running order. Mironenko 4th position in the AAA Honda NSX, just ahead of Farid, having a boring race up in P5. Meanwhile, let's jump to a replay. Lewis McGlade of the start.
Yeah, look at how much is going on. So you can see there Lawrenson, who had made a great start, a little bit too good, who'd got through. And this is Mia Rose in the middle of all of it. And this is where picked up a drive-through penalty. It was with the 35. And it was down into the Roger that the issue really happened. It was against that 35, so what we're focused on here between the white Bentley and the purple Bentley, where there was an issue. Lawrenson had got involved in issues further ahead, and this is kind of where you can see this in the foreground. A lot is going on in all this, despite only being 18 cars, straight into the rear end of the 35, spinning him round. There was Lawrenson, who'd already had an issue. That was what gave Mia Rose a penalty. Lawrenson got a penalty for jumping the start, so clearly quite a lot's been going on.
And that was a fair penalty in terms of the contact from Mia Rose. It's a slam dunk. She ran into the back of the car ahead, but also at the same hand, quite unlucky, because of course the purple Bentley ahead was slowing down due to some contact and a car running slowly on the inside. So checked up and unexpected in the heat of battle when you've got so little view of what's happening ahead of you. It's such an easy mistake to make that Mia Rose did, and I think she'll count herself very, very unfortunate there. This is Andrew Lawrenson. Let's have a look at what happened to the Laundry House Mercedes. So we're coming through the Curva Grande into the second chicane. That is Avila Bahar just ahead of us. Woods just behind us. Lawrenson looks to the inside, thinks better of it, then goes late layer, just hanging your nose in there when it really isn't necessary. That is a pretty big mistake from Lawrenson, but a pretty slick return to the track, almost.
That was pretty hot. It's a shame there was all the other cars around, but that was actually not that bad. By the way, I've seen worse rejoins. It wasn't ideal, because it was kind of a little bit left on the racetrack. But
it's so frustrating, isn't it, for Lawrenson? He really should know better than just holding the nose up the inside in it. You need nor out, and it's always going to be an accident, that, isn't it?
Unfortunately, in both senses, jumping the race start, or exceeding the speed limit of the race start, and then of course that you're in 2 attempts. I mean, you can classify it as bad luck, but realistically, complete creator of their own demise in that one. Unfortunately, it's a shame, because I mean, we like ourselves a bit of Laundry House. We want to see them roll up the order. We want to see them do well. I mean, the 666 was a car that I was definitely looking at in this field as being one that could challenge at the front. And it's not as if this championship is over after this one race. There's still time for them to respond in this sense, and they can still do a decent point score, even knowing their pace. It's just a little bit unnecessarily clumsy. As we'll see, another one of these incidents. This was, I think it was Osaki backing out of it, and then it was the issue for Jiang. So there is Osaki bowing out of it. We can actually finally see, I think it must have been too much curb on the left-hand side. There it is, lift the entire rear of the car off the road and off the track. Lucky, to be perfectly honest, to get out of that.
Yep, that could very easily have been contact with the barriers, and then you've attracted some damage to your car, and you've got yourself a real problem until the next pit stops, which is some time away from when that incident took place. So typical Monza, I'm afraid, that one. Just a little bit too greedy on the curbs, and then the price you pay is significant. But let's have a look at this race lead battle now, down to 1 second. Avila Bahar for JMX Phantom in the McLaren has worked wonders over the last 15-20 minutes to close down the gap to the fuel-saving Dylan Tan ahead. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have race on our hands for this race lead.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting between these, because, of course, like we said, we've got... whilst we've got these kind of drivers in the car, we are expecting a potential driver switch. Whether it'll be at the first stint or the second stint, we don't know, but there will be a driver switch between them. So plenty to focus on this. Now, let's really take a look as to what has kind of happened in this incident here. So we've got Osaki, who's going to sort of defend a little bit, and then Kin Long Lee is going to go on the inside. They're going to be perfectly side by side by the time they go into the corner until this point. And now I would say that Kin Long Lee was kind of offline there, but by that point, if you were Osaki, you've got to back out of it, or to be perfectly honest, just skip the chicane, because that was not really alongside enough at the second apex, and that's what causes that incident. Like the first part, like what actually kind of drew them to that point, and I'd say it was an unfair overtake from Longley. I'm not actually going to deny that. I think it was a little bit too aggressive, but the actual spin around, I don't think you'd be hard pressed to look past Osaki for anyone to kind of blame in that one, unfortunately. But obviously, that is race control. They'll be able to pick through it and adjudicate where they see fit, looking at a whole multitude of angles. So they'll have a lot more to look at than us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Osaki as well at that stage has made quite a few mistakes running up to that contact and was under pressure from those behind. So sometimes it's part of the battle of being a driver, especially in an endurance race, is knowing when enough is enough and to give up on the fight. Here we go now, we're riding on board with, I believe, there we go, that's a different view, that's a car very high up in the air. Osaki launching off of those sausage curbs. So yeah, quite a big incident there. Both drivers looking to get away with that one, in fact, in terms of not really getting too much damage, as Daniel Hunter chases down the aforementioned Yugo Osaki, who currently holds 10th position, still in the points.
Yeah, that'd be back-breaking. I kind of think that was pretty intense over the curb there. Is look at this from Dan Hunter, defending a little bit from Zhang, who's working up the order. Nearly, by the way, Zhang shows how much pace there is in that car, because nearly he's on the back of Osaki, who he was ahead of just as he made that mistake that we caught on replay. So it shows how well the final part of this first stint has actually been going for Zhang post-incident there, and nearly able to clear Hunter into the slipstream though of the Honda, and I think Hunter might hold on rather for this position right now, but as they're all going to close up. Obviously you've got Damon Woods in there, who was rising up the order, had a drive-through penalty himself, but was battling up inside the top five with about third position in the early stages of the race. They'll be a little bit disappointed, but again, points are not done yet. They are right there. I mean, everyone can still score points. That group just continues to build for the final points paying position, which this is, by the way, 10th place. Oh, it's a little bit deep. Dan Hunter's going to mess that one up. Going to drop the position. Oh, Damon Woods misjudged it. Thought Hunter was going to come across a bit more on the racetrack and then spun out Hunter. I think that's a pretty slam dunk one if ever I've seen it. That's a bit of a shame for Damon Woods, just kind of misjudging it all. It was a little bit clumsy from all round, to be perfectly honest. It's a bit of a shame there.
Yeah, real shame. That one was bubbling away to become quite the fight. And Andrew Lawrenson arrived on the scene as well, was incredibly close to making contact. I'm not sure if they did or not, actually, with the returning to circuit Damon Woods. So bit of excitement further down the running order, right the way up at the front of the field. There's some excitement as well. Avila Bahar has now closed that gap down to as near as makes no difference, nothing between himself and Dylan Tan and Lewis. If Tan indeed is fuel saving at this juncture and is running below the optimum pace that he's capable of in that Mercedes, when do you reach the point where you think fuel saving needs to go out the window and I need to start pushing again, otherwise I'm going to be in serious danger of losing a place?
I mean, that is not an easy one. Look, we know that Dylan Tan is a quality driver. We've seen his pace and potential, and especially when you consider that his teammate in that Legion of Racers car is Andika Ramamolana. They're both quality drivers. Whether we're going to see a switch on this pit stop, I don't know. The fuel saving is not actually an easy one, because you want to save as much fuel on the first stint as possible, which means that you can push for the next two, because you've already ticked that all off. They were gifted a 6-second lead, and they've just used that. They've used it to their advantage, whether it's because they don't have pace, or whether it's just because they are trying to work their way into a decent position later in the race, and do the fuel saving whilst they have the time, rather than doing all the fuel saving while someone is stuck on you. It's kind of a situation where it is very, very difficult. And the only team that knows exactly what's going on is the car that we're focused on, Dylan Tan, right now. They should be in control, but it's one of those ones that can easily slip through their fingers. I think they've kind of got to turn it up around now. They can't really afford the JMX Phantom cars to get through, unless their plan is to save fuel, to allow that Phantom car to either pass or not really fight them too hard, and then just sit behind them. Turn it up a little bit, sit behind them. But then it means you've got to get by at some point, and that's not necessarily a guarantee.
These are why we love endurance racing. Zhang now, by the way, on Kawasaki. So this fight continues. The Bentley really doing good work to make its way back up the order, shows its nose to the inside, not alongside Kawasaki, though. We'll be hoping that the Honda runs deep, which it does, through the parabolic and gets a bit of a wiggle on as well as he tries to get the power down to Yugo Asaki. That opens the door now for Yang to go to the inside for the run down into the first corner. The Bentley Continental is a big car, but it has a powerful engine. Not as powerful, though, as the Honda NSX apparently. Slips back into the slipstream, tries to get a little bit of draft coming down into the T1 chicane. Not enough, though, as Hunter jumps down pit lane from 16th position. So Dan Hunter is the first of our drivers to make a stop. Maybe, though, a bit earlier than one would have expected. Potentially damage on the 567.
I mean, essentially, if they run the 65 minutes all the way up to the 65 minutes, they can do it from here, because you can pit with an hour to go or whatever. It's possible. I mean, they could have done it a few minutes ago, to be perfectly honest. I think they're still in for doing the race on just one more stop. It's a bit early. It's a bit aggressive. It means that final stop is going to be a little bit longer than some others. I don't necessarily agree with it. Always with this kind of race, you kind of want to go a bit longer. But then again, I like to see some drivers throw some things out there, take some risks, take some take advantage of the situation that you're in, and that's exactly what they're doing. So we'll have to wait and see whether that is going to be a positive, as we can see on board with Zhang. This is where the move was made a good while ago, about 50 minutes ago on Osaki, maybe 40 minutes ago on Osaki, and then it was this corner where the mistake was made that allowed the entire pack to pass. But I mean, we've already seen this one. We've already got a bit of an idea as to what's happened in this battle, and now we get to see it all over again with the knowledge of what happened before, which, if you're a racing driver, you tend to remember where you've been passed, and you tend to not get passed too much into that corner again.
Yeah, Saki using all of this experience now to his advantage in the lead car of this two-car battle. Remember, this is the fight for the final points-paying position. We only pay points down into 10th place in the SRO Esports Asia Endurance Series. So there's 7 drivers, at least, that will be going home from this race disappointed that they've not made a score in the race. And Zhang, now in 11th place, is the first of those drivers that are outside of the points. There are 2 hours, 2 minutes, 32 seconds left on the clock, so there is plenty of time for that to change as these two continue to squabble. But while they're fighting, Takuma is now 6.3 seconds up the road. Kinlong Lee is a further 1 second ahead, and Nigel Chua 6.7 seconds behind Floyd. So they've really detached themselves as once again Asaki makes a mistake, goes deep. This opens the door for Shane to go to the inside, coming in to the first. Oh, there we go. The Asaki decides, come on, take the position. That's a fight I don't want to fight. And good intelligent driving from Asaki there.
Yeah, basically the just get on with it, mate, please. Okay, thanks, bye. At the moment at the front, though, Dylan Tan leading by less than a second as Bahar is there. But not only that, to give you some lap times is what's been listed off recently. The last lap time for our race leader was a 49.5. Obviously, it was a 49.5 from Bahar as well. But let's go back one more position to Huang, who's driving around in 3rd position. Last lap time, a 48.7 as Muranenko comes into the pit lane in the 888 car. We are looking to potentially have a 3-way fight for the race lead heading into the first pit stop of the afternoon.
Hey, fantastic stuff. Sergei Mironenko pulls the trigger, does Floyd as well in 6th position. So 2 of our front-running top 6 cars decide to jump down pit lane a little bit earlier than potentially we anticipated. Now the question is, can Avila Bahar get himself up onto the back of Dylan Tan before he has to serve that pit stop? Remember, Avila Bahar has been pushing incredibly hard in this JMX Phantom machine all the way through the first stint, having got compromised earlier in the race. He's closed down a 6.5 second lead to Dylan Tan ahead. Will the fuel saving of Dylan Tan be enough to allow the Mercedes to run a little bit longer into this race than those immediately around him? And can Huang do anything about it in the 118 Ferrari? 3.1 seconds in arrears, currently running on the bottom step of the podium in 3rd position. He will want these 2 cars at the front of the field to begin to squabble, to start to compromise each other's lap times and overall race pace. That will give him the opportunity, will Huang, to close the chase it, to close the leading pack down, which is critical at this stage in the race. Let's see now to come through the parabolic. Will anybody elect to come down pit road? Avila Bahar does indeed stay to the inside. He looks like he's potentially thinking about a pit lane. Both drivers, our race leader Dylan Tan and Avila Bahar and the Ferrari in third position, all decide to make their stop on the same lap. Now it's a case of who can get to their pit box soonest, who can hit their marks, get their fuel in the car. Will anybody elect to short fuel the car for this next stint? Are we going to see any driver changes as well? Drama is unfolding. Mr. Lewis McGlade.
I think you've got to brim the tank. You've just got to brim the tank and get on with it. You're only short fuel for that final stop. You've got to keep your options open now just in case. We'll say with Avila Bahar there. Interesting, when was driving around, was coming down towards the Parabolica. Thumb was up in the air. Now, whether that was to signal, yep, okay, dinner's ready, or if it was to someone else to be like, I am coming into the pit lane, thumb was up. Clearly, I mean, maybe there might be someone else there strategizing for them, which, by the way, as a race engineer, to actually be there next to the driver that you're helping is actually really surprisingly helpful, because you don't get as much as you can. You know, we've all seen this before. You can watch all of the onboards of everyone else driving around. It's all this, but actually seeing the body language of someone driving actually really helps, as they've all come out of the pit lane. And I think there's been a bit of time lost, because I think Dylan Tan's actually gained a little bit of time in the pit lane sequence there. As you can see, Bahar has dropped back, I think, even behind Chuao. We'll have to take a look at the order. I think they have lost an awful lot of time in that JMX Phantom, so I think some people are taking a bit of gambles on the pit lane sequence. I think it is Dylan Tan at the head of this group, not necessarily, we'll find out in the first sector split. I think it's Dylan Tan at the front of it.
It is indeed. I think Indika Ramalana is now behind the wheel of the number 889 machine. So yes, there he is as the timing screen updates. So Ramalana takes the race lead in effect when the pit stops all cycle through. Ken Huang has moved up in a second position, and Fadle Rakhmat now behind the wheel of the JMX Phantom number 10 machine drops one place and plenty of real estate on the racetrack down into what will in effect be third position when Nigel Chua and Zhang come down pit road in probably a couple of minutes time, as Him Ho jumps down pit lane in the 101 Lamborghini, currently 11th place on the racetrack. So there we go, bit of drama in the pit stops, quite the change at the front of the field.
Now with Fadle Rakhmat behind the wheel of the JMX Phantom car, a bit more work to do. They've already had to close up to the 889 before, and now they're just going to have to do that once more. But there we go, instantly a mistake straight over Ascari, and time has been lost for JMX Phantom as Fadle Rakhmat is just dropping time. The gap to Andika Ram Maulana pre-pit stop was under a second. Post-pit stop is probably closer to 8 now when we cross the lap time to complete this one. That is a costly mistake. With there being 1 hour 57, by the way, left, it does mean that Chuao and Jiang in that Bentley that we know is good in fuel. Anyone who's been watching any of the European endurance or even the SimGrid VCO World Cup know that Bentley is pretty decent on fuel. And yeah, they're really showing it now that even in this, they're able to make the most of that Bentley, and it's big tank. So clearly being able to do the full 65 minutes, which I don't think I'm necessarily that shocked by, to be perfectly honest.
And that is going to potentially be a big advantage for them in 1 hour and 56 minutes time if they can minimise the amount of time they need to fuel save on the racetrack. So essentially driving flat chat and getting the same fuel mileage as those drivers that are really holding back and looking to save fuel. Now Ishil in the Success Esports machine drops a position, does the number 39. That is a laundry house car that makes its way past its Moreno now in the driver's seat of the 88. So Luis Moreno moving up in a 12th place, but under pressure once again by the Porsche. Ishil's not given up on this one yet. The 39 very firmly in the slipstream. Porsches that we know are incredibly fast here at Monza. He's got the outside into the chicane though, decides nope, let's not bother with that one. We will live to fight another day. But a good overtaking manoeuvre and a good start to his time in the car for Luis Moreno up in a 12th position. Chuao now in pit lane.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chuao Jiang will be into the pit lane this time. Baeta will recycle Andika Ram Maulana up into the race lead for Legion of Racers. 3.6 seconds clear of Huang, who's done good work. Those two basically identical in the pit lane sequences, around about 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. It is all down to that number 10, which has been stationary for more time. Now that could be time they'll get back. on the second pit stop, which we expect in around about 50 minutes time. Ooh, nearly a bit of a moment there from Ishii coming out of Lesmo 1. But right now, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned with the JMX Phantom car. Fadli Rakhmat is a quick driver, do not get me wrong, but that gap, it's almost like it's a little bit too big.
Well, the question is then, Lewis, is that purely and simply the amount of fuel that's been taken on board by the respective cars? Or is that something to do with placement and a slower pit stop due to the driver not optimising when he stops, when he turns the engine off, when he turns it back on again, and when he accelerates out of his box?
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure. There was all we do know was that there was the pit lane sequence for Rakhmat was 3 seconds longer. That could be fuel. It's not really going to. It's not going to be tyres. Not with that kind of difference. It's just not long enough. 3 seconds more so probably in the region of there just being a mistake somewhere in pit lane. But then there was more time lost, of course, exit of pit lane. Sorry, on the outlap. Speaking of exit of pit lane and various issues, Jay Yang in the Predator Mavs Esports car. I don't know about you, Paul, but that's not necessarily the ideal positioning of a car on pit lane. They can't really do too much to it there.
I mean, I'm all for variety and I'm all for trying some new strategy, but I think you're right. I don't think that is going to be a record pit stop for the 101. Not quite sure what's happening with Jay Yang. Looks like the car's switched off at this moment in time. So whether that's a technical failure or an issue of some variety with the software, I'm sure we'll find out in the fullness of time. But the bad news is for that 101 that's been down pit lane now for at least 2 or 3 laps. So that suggests they've got something more going on behind the scenes. That could be our first retirement of the day that we're looking at there for the 101 Lamborghini, as Farid now 6th position fancies his chances against the 546 Mercedes, currently driven by Sweet in 5th position. So Sweet now taking his first stint in this race. Farid, of course, started the race in the Bentley Continental, the number 22, very dark there in his room, concentrating purely the window into the gaming world that he's got through his monitor. So Farid now, can he find a way past in the Axel Academy number 22 Bentley Continental GT3 as we head down in a T1, telegraphs the move nice and early, shows his nose coming into the chicane, cannot scare the Mercedes off the racing line and has to think again how he's going to find a way past.
So it does beg the big question. They have moved. Jay Yang has moved forward, but that's about it. As far as
going sideways, though, would help his car.
Yeah, it really would. No, it does beg the important question: lights on or lights off when you're driving? If you're driving on monitors, you're driving in your room. Do you want your lights on or your lights off in your room?
It has to be. It has to be lights off.
Really?
Anything I can do to shut out the real world and just put myself into my virtual environment, I would wholeheartedly recommend doing. I like the lights off, and I have a little LED torchy type thing just in case I need it if I'm trying to find something that I've dropped or the house has disappeared or something daft. But yeah, lights off for me for sure.
I think I find that the glare of the screens too much. I can only drive with my lights on.
Really?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I don't even know.
I was going to say it's bizarre as well, but I'll just sidestep
that
one.
We'll agree to disagree, shall we, on this one. I wasn't sure if he was driving, by the way, with VR in that as well, because I did see his screen moving quite a bit. As we'll see, him tried to make a move anyway. Speaking of the devil, as Farid's getting down the inside of Sweet. That was interesting because I'm pretty sure could have committed there at Parabolica and could have got down the inside of Sweet, but didn't decide. Definitely not VR, but it does. If you kind of watch where the A pillar, it does actually move a little bit. I think it might have just been using a look left, look right, going through the first chicane. But I do think that there was a bit of movement there. Might have just been me going a bit crazy. As Farid looking down the inside now and is going to throw it down there, all the way down. And there you go. You can see there, just moving over from left to right, clearing the position, getting it one up. And if you were looking at the screen, it was moving around a bit. So it could be a head tracker or something.
Good overtaking manoeuvre, whatever system he's using on board the Axel Academy car, takes that 5th position, and sensible driving there from Farid. He makes the move when he thinks he's in a comfortable and confident position to be able to pull that overtake off. Goes defensive as well just to cover his bases into the second chicane. The Bentley stops nice and on time, gets a decent run out of the corner as well, so Sweet is very much in 6th position now when on the attack to find a way back past again. And we spoke about this earlier in the show, and I think it's so critical, isn't it, in endurance racing? If you're going to make an overtaking manoeuvre, make one that you're fairly confident is going to stick. Don't go for half measures. Don't just lazily look down the inside, because all you're doing is giving away lap time, and that's exactly what Farid did. Waited till the opportune moment, and then he struck when he felt he's most confident that he can achieve that, deliver that pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I say, he could have made a move down into Parabolic, but knowing that if he'd done that, probably would have lost position again down into T1. You're sat behind them for too long. You're wasting time, is what you're doing. You're wasting an awful lot of time. For Farid, that was, a perfectly telegraphed move, and well done between the two of them not to lose more time. And it's beneficial to both of you, because you're not, like, neither of you are losing as much time as you would if you just battle it out. And for Sweet right now, he's got to be looking behind to Taruna, to Kinlong Lee, who's closing. Speaking, by the way, of Kinlong Lee, we can see that we've had a lot of driver changes, right? And for drivers like Kinlong Lee, for like Huang, that have just been in, for Zhang as well, Madison. Madison's actually just jumped in for this stint. For all these drivers that have done 2 stints, though, they need to make the most of this. Whilst they're not fresh in the car, they're the ones that have done the first stint. They're already in the rhythm of this car, of this track. They need to make the most of it now, and kind of get on with it, really, and try and make some progress whilst everyone else is getting up to speed.
Absolutely, and it can't be understated how valuable that is, to have a driver that is confident, comfortable, warmed up and aware of what is happening around him, compared to people that are new into the car. There's some opportunity to have some advantages. Walking low, keeps to the inside, that forces the Porsche to go very, very much onto the escape road. So better driving, defensive driving on the inside. The Porsche admits that that was a mistake and advantage gain, so gets off of the throttle and gives the position back to the number 21 machine. Good driving, good polite driving there from the 39. The stewards will be satisfied that that is fair play from all concerned, and that's a manoeuvre that we've seen more than a few times in the world of Monza, in real and virtual as well.
We'll say, by the way, because whilst we were catching them in the pit lane, the 101 Lamborghini, the Predator Mavs Esports car, I think it has retired. Whether it's actually tried to rejoin, obviously it was Jay Yang behind the wheel at that point, has switched over, and it's Lock Him Ho, it does say on the leaderboard, but they've not departed pit lane. I think their day's run, I mean, it was pretty much done anyway. There they are in pit lane. We'll have to keep our eye on them, see if they do manage to get themselves back out on the racetrack, but I do kind of think it might be over, unfortunately, for the 101 Lamborghini, all the way down in last position, unfortunately. I mean, a bit of a shame. Still don't know what happened to them in pit lane, but clearly there was some form of technical issue there. That's not necessarily a driver mistake. There was a technical fault of some description, whether it be a wheel issue. There he is leaving the pit lane, so we have got all 17 runners. They are quite a way down, but fair enough that they're just staying in the race and is trying to take it to the end, but well, why not?
Credit where credit's due. Massively far down the running order now, 5-6 laps in arrears, but good on them for getting over whatever problem they've had, getting over that one and back onto the racetrack. Now I think Lock Him Ho started this race and was the driver that brought the car in a pit lane, but you're right, we did see the second driver momentarily on board that car when it was stuck down pit road, and we also saw this 17th place 101 drop off the timing screen and then come back, which suggests they've gone out of the server, come back in it again. Now whether that was a driver swap issue software wise, or whether the driver that was coming into the car had some kind of hardware problem, which maybe it was, seeing as they couldn't get the car turned from the pit box, so they've had to put Him Ho back behind the wheel again. I'm not quite sure. Maybe will be whispered sweet nothings in our ear by somebody from race control to explain what's been going on later in the race. But good on them for getting the 101 back out, and I'm glad to see it, because that is a particularly beautiful liveried Lamborghini, and I like to see me some nice liveries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with, if that issue was like Jay Yang's wheel disconnecting or something as they were leaving, wasn't connected up properly. To be fair, you can put Lock Him Ho into the car, make him do this stint, and then try again on the next pit stop, because they are required to make that change. So I think we'll see that a bit later on. There's Kin Long Lee getting past Taruna. So the Wacko's flip table car that was backwards at Lesmo 2 is absolutely flying. And Kin Long Lee has made the position up into 7th place, about 5.5 seconds down to the next car of Sweet. But this car is moving forward. Considering it's been backwards and stationary, they are, like I say, just trying to get back into it. Lock Him Ho back into the pit lane for the Predator Mavs Esports car, and I think they might try and make the change straight away to try and put Jay Yang back in the car, and we will all keep our fingers crossed that everything is okay and that this swap goes a bit smoother than the last one, and they don't end up perpendicular to the pit lane, just sat at the end of it.
Yep, fingers crossed for the Predator Mavs eSport team. The 101 pluckily fighting on down in 17th position. Filippa Bikina now. We're looking on board the second of the two female racers in this race in the 666 machine. Bikina taking her first turn behind the wheel of the Laundry House car. She's got Luis Moreno for company just ahead. So two Mercedes that started much further up the running order. They'll both be pretty disappointed indeed to be running outside of the points paying positions as we hit the halfway mark in this race near enough. So Filippa Bikina trying to find a way past the fellow Mercedes driver ahead, and I still think that Bikina has a very nice opportunity to find herself in the points paying positions by the time the checkered flag waves. And we're just being whispered in our ears that sadly the 101 did not make it through that driver swap, so they are now out of this motor race.
Yeah, a bit of a sad moment. By the way, in the Asia Sprint Series, to give Filippa Bikina another bit of a shout out, in that season finale that we did at Suzuka, did end up finishing inside the points. I said it was somewhere inside the points, couldn't remember exactly where. It was with an 8th place finish. Also had another top 10 finish in that series as well, with a 7th place finish in the second round of the season. So clearly has pace by herself. Now teaming up. Wouldn't be the greatest start to the day. However, they are trying to make the most of it now as Bikina gets down the inside of Moreno, makes that one stick. That was not fought at all by Legion of Racers driver Moreno, but it was a little bit overdone by Bikina. There's a bit of contact on the exit. That was a little bit slammed off the racetrack. I don't think Moreno's going to be particularly pleased with that manoeuvre.
Yeah, that was a little bit aggressive by Filippa Bikina. But just going back to her Asia Sprint Series championship results do not tell the whole picture. Filippa Bikina is massively rapid, incredibly rapid, but much like Andrew Lawrenson, her teammate, for one reason or another, those results just don't seem to come in based on the speed that she's got. So Bikina, a very, very, very quick driver indeed, and expect her and Lawrenson and Laundry House to be in and around the sharp end throughout the course of this season. And for their benefit, let's hope their luck turns a little bit and some of the results start coming their way that their speed so very much deserves.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. They've got more. Yeah, we know they've got more to show. Today just hasn't worked out, and I'm not going to throw Lawrenson under the bus too much. Of course, we know the speed, just the jump start probably all got a little bit too much, and that's an interesting camera angle for Arwin Taruna. That is just how it's positioned. A great view of a chest. I mean, just the top of a wheel, which I'm going to suggest is, I don't know what wheel you'd say that is, maybe a Fanatec or something. I don't actually know. I can't tell by the top of it. Unfortunately, we're showing so little of it. But, I mean, fair enough. I've seen some odd camera angles. That would probably go somewhere higher up the list.
It could do with being higher up in angle. I can say that one for sure. But it's good though. It is great, regardless of some of the curious camera angles that we see. We're looking at Corey Sweet now in a very atmospheric looking room.
Ooh,
it's
great
nice to be able to see the drivers in action, isn't it? To see them in their own environments and these different cameras set up, the different hardware that people are using, different configurations. It looks to me like Corey Sweet has got those really very impressive bezel correction strips that you have on.
Yeah.
I mean, just to talk about that for a second, if we can, while there's the action's quieting down. I used to run triples myself before these things were invented, and it were always frustrated that you've got, when I say bezel, I mean the frame around the outside of the monitor. And when you've got 3 monitors, inevitably you've got 2 bezels coming together, making a double thick, big black strip that breaks up your picture. So it's clearly 3 screens side by side that you're looking at. They've now got these bezel correction kits, which some kind of magic that I don't understand, and you put them on and it hides those bezels and continues the picture, so it looks like one unbroken, very wide, very angled screen. And they are sensational, to the point where I really wouldn't mind buying 3 more monitors to try them out. Very impressive.
When you were using triples, were they CRTs?
Not far off.
Sorry, that's such a harsh.
No, seriously, not far off at all. They were really, really big, heavy, thick screens at 60 hertz and all that good stuff. So yeah, it was quite a long time ago, shall we say?
I have had the chance to see a couple of those, because the first time I'd seen them, I was like looking at it and being like, what is that? And I was like, oh right, yeah, it hides it. Obviously, all it's doing is it's not making a picture. It's essentially just a bit of like plastic or glass that just refracts the light through and essentially just carries it on from what was there. Like it's not what would have been there. It's just like essentially smearing the picture over. But when you're driving around, it kind of convinces you you don't notice it. It's
sensationally well, doesn't it?
So well. It's incredible. It really is something which you wouldn't expect would make a massive difference. And it kind of, I guess, in a sense of like performance, it doesn't. But when it comes to immersing you in this, you talk of this whole, we love the idea of a massive ultra wide screen. Whereas if you can have triple screens and then have those, that's like essentially that's as perfect as you're going to get it. You've got this massive wraparound, and you don't have any of the edges. It just really, really immerses you in the car and gives you perfect spatial awareness. Sometimes I've seen some not so great spatial awareness, so I'll hold fire on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, the hardware does not make the driver, but it does bring the immersion up, as you say. I mean, I run ultra-wides myself, and I absolutely love ultra-wide monitors, but the beauty of, as Sean Madison gets very much on edge in the HPD Yas Pro 93 machine in 10th place, but triples do, they wrap around you, so you do have the side of the car view much, much more than you would do with a curved widescreen monitor. Very, very nice solution, but sadly, all good things come at a cost, and there's the financial cost of 3 monitors, but also the hardware cost of running those on a PC as well is quite demanding.
Yeah, you need really, really, really good a computer to run that kind of stuff, especially on Sims these days. They're so demanding. When you compare like what we have here in ACC running on Unreal Engine 4, it is demanding. It really, really is. And like I say, that the cost that it comes with, normally you're going to have to turn your graphic settings down, which sure, I mean, like that can help, but then that can remove you from the immersion as well. Like there is always a price to pay at the end, and unless you want to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds trying to buy the ultimate PC, which still won't necessarily do everything.
Tell me about it.
You've got to pick your battles. Basically, is where like an ultra wide or something like that does come in, because it's like that middle ground where you're only essentially rendering one screen. You're only rendering the game once.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about, these are the things that sim racers consider when getting into this hobby, getting into this sport. There's many different combinations for many different budgets. So if you're watching this race and you're new to the world of sim racing, or you've not engaged in this for yourself, then I do recommend that you get yourself involved in virtual motorsport. You don't have to spend big money. You can have just as much fun on very, very entry-level equipment for a modest cost in comparison to some of the rigs that the drivers today, for example, are rocking, and still be just as competitive if you're fast enough as a driver. So if you are new and you are on the fence about joining us, it would be great to see you with us in the world of virtual motorsports. It's incredibly satisfying and an addictive way to spend some time if you're a fan of all things that go brum brum fast.
I mean, I started sim racing back in 2013 on a controller.
Child, you.
Yeah, thank you. This is CRT screens. They were definitely not a thing. But no, we started on just an Xbox controller. I didn't have the access to get a wheel or whatever, and I didn't really know too much about sim racing. So it's like, right, I'm going to take part. This is back in the days when it was obviously R Factor 1 and that, that was like the main place that you were going to do racing on that, or a GameStop car. Just on a controller, just set up the controller and just have a bit of fun, especially with ACC, which I know, obviously coming out on the console market, it's coming out on PlayStation and Xbox. There is the opportunity to race this on a controller. It actually works quite nicely with a controller. No, you're not going to be as fast as these guys. It's just like they're just superhuman in that sense. I do know of a couple of people that race very quickly on a controller, but still, it just opens up your opportunity to at least take part, to get that taste of it, and then to maybe make a decision later on to get a wheel. I then moved on to a G27 and enjoyed sim racing ever since past that point. Just constantly racing. I do feel bad for that thing. That has done an awful lot of hours. It has been retired since though, so we're okay on that one, but that did a lot of racing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's all about taking part. Racing is racing, no matter what hardware you're using. If you're involved in a good, clean, fair, respectful fight with somebody else, or even with the AI offline, the thrill of competition is equally as strong, no matter what equipment that you're using. So yeah, if you are new to this world, then please do think deeply about getting involved in it, because it is a very, very satisfying hobby indeed. And for many of the drivers, especially people that are in competitions like this, it's not a hobby, it's an actual professional career, picked up by teams, by manufacturers and brands associated with them. The Octane Community Sim Sport Drive, Alex Bowen now, that you can see with a bit of a livery in the background there as well. So this is a very realistic career option if real world racing is not open to you for whatever reason, which is truly fabulous to see, isn't it?
Well, I say, like, back then you could probably count on, well, to be honest, only like 2 or 3 fingers, the people that were actually earning a wage from driving of any description. Whereas these days, yeah, you could not count on your hands. There are a lot of drivers out there. I mean, you probably need more than the 2 hands that you got to count from even 1 or 2, like one team, how many drivers they've got that are actually earning a money. There are some teams that do have quite a few that are able to consistently go out there and deliver and bring in some prize money. With that constantly growing every year we move on in sim racing, it's kind of now to get in is probably about the best time. By the way, front of the grid, Andika Raul whilst we've been waffling on, approaching the halfway point of this race, Andika Raul has been closed down a little bit as Qiusheng Huang is closing in on the race lead. It is under a second to Maulana, so the Indonesian driver is coming under a fair amount of pressure right now from the 118 Ferrari, and if they battle it out, Fadli Rakhmat, who lost, of course, the 3 seconds on stationary time, but then, which is in the pit lane, and then also the time on the exit of the pit lane running through Ascari. You can see there the orange McLaren in the background for JMX Phantom. Do not rule it out. This could well be a 3-way fight between the Legion of Racers car, Full Pace Racing, and potentially JMX Phantom as well.
Fantastic stuff as we're heading now close to the second half of this race. The 3 race leaders are beginning to form together on the racetrack, and this will be interesting. Obviously, Andika Raul in the 889 machine is new into the car for this stint. We saw in the first stint that car ran away from things when the heat was high at the start of the race and everybody was squabbling over the same bit of tarmac. But when everything settled down, when drivers got clean air and could start to perform their own race, that Mercedes was reeled in very, very quickly indeed by the number 10 McLaren. Now this Ferrari is in the equation as well, with Huang behind the wheel still continuing from the start of this race. Does that Mercedes just not have the pace of those cars around it? Is this some kind of strategy? Are we seeing a tactician's race unfold from the 889, or is it purely and simply that car's clinging on as best it can while faster cars around it are not maximising their results and performance?
I mean, I'm not sure. After the first stint, you kind of could say potentially that Rakhmat and the JMX Phantom car is trying something different. They were pushing maybe a little bit harder, or maybe even they're trying something in the pit stop that means their next stop will actually be shorter. But the last pit lane sequence put Huang and Raul Maulana at the same time. Right, they were on the same time in pit lane. They went into the pit lane with a 3.5 second gap. They came out with a 3.5 second gap. So this gap has just been closed down. This is completely legitimate with the expectation is that their final pit stop will be of the same length as well. So this one, I think, it's a proper on-track battle, and you'd have to say that maybe Andika Ramanmolana just lost out a little bit of time there, and just doesn't really necessarily have the pace to battle it out with Huang. Does that mean then that you've got to put Dylan Tan back in the car? Well, I'm actually going to say no, because I think this is Huang finding a lot of time. Remember, towards the end of the first stint of the race, we were talking about it being around about 1 minute 49 on the timesheets. Well, Andika Ramanmolana's last lap time was a 48.6. It was a 48.8 for Huang. It was a 48.4 for Fadli Rakhmat. So there are they're going quicker than they were before. It's just so much so that Huang has actually managed to close up to the back of that Mercedes, and I get the feeling this is just going to be a proper all-out battle, at least for the next half hour.
What I will say, though, is Andika Ramanmolana looks very, very cool, calm, collected and comfortable in that car. We're not seeing much movement from the Mercedes. It's very smooth on corner entry, smooth on corner exit. But we saw Huang and we saw also Rakhmat in the back of the shot, really on the absolute ragged edge. We've seen an incident between car 88 and 666 on lap 40, a 5-second time penalty for the 666, currently driven by Philippa Bakida. So 9 laps ago, some drama unfolded between those two and Bakida. A car cannot get any good fortune whatsoever, and 5 seconds will be served at their next pit stop. But yeah, Ramanmolana looks much more comfortable behind the wheel at this stage, whereas the chasing pack are very much on edge and pushing at the absolute limit.
I could see that 5-second time penalty coming. I mean, it was just a bit too much of a hip check from Bakida down at the Rettifilio that just kind of, I mean, it was an unnecessary hip check. I mean, it was obviously not intentional. It just kind of happened as Bakida overcooked the corner. We did catch that one on screen and then made contact with Moreno departing the first chicane. I was expecting it to be some form of penalty. 5 seconds is fair. It's definitely not worthy of a drive-through. 5 seconds is enough for a slap on the wrist, but it's just another thing to add to that car. Another thing to be like, oh god, there's something else to throw at it today. They can still score points. Right, with 5 seconds back, they can still score points. It's still on the horizon. They are closing down, or Bakida is closing down to Madison. Points are up for offer. They just need to keep hammering in good lap times and effectively eliminate mistakes. They cannot make another mistake in this race, because Race Control have got their eyes on that car.
Oh, absolutely. They need to be very, very clean. Very aggressive still, though. If Bakida and the 666 car to score points and score good points at that, they cannot afford to lose any more time either in traffic, out on the racetrack, in pit stops, or when it comes to overtaking other drivers. We're riding on board now with Huang second position. That is still Andika Ramanmolana ahead. We see some lap traffic further up the road as well, so now traffic starting to play its part in this race as well. Huang will be well aware that that is a good opportunity for him to either close down or potentially overtake that Mercedes ahead. So Andika Ramanmolana, the first car to wake up lap traffic to the fact that they have got the race leaders closing them down. This could be a very important part of this motor race.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I mean, let's say an hour and a half into the race with cars. As I told you, you don't need 175,000 cars to make a good race. You just really need 2, or in this case, to be honest, 3 or 4, which have created a fair amount of entertainment for us throughout the running of the 3-hour season opener here at Monza. But Andika Ramanmolana is starting to feel the pressure now as Huang is right there. You can see the lap traffic just on the horizon there of Ishii, who's just dropped back down the order. Unfortunately, just hasn't really had the pace. Has got involved in a couple of issues, saw him a bit further up, so no, there's a bit more pace in the tank for them. But realistically, and fingers crossed, to be perfectly honest, they kind of jump out of the way quite soon, because this battle doesn't need any extra drama. It doesn't need to add anything more spicy to it. It's plenty spicy enough.
It is indeed, but just have a look for a moment now. Watch the body language of Ramanmolana's car ahead and how little it's moving around the racetrack. Yeah. And then look how hard Huang's working on the steering wheel in that Ferrari behind. We know the Ferrari is a car that's very much on its tippy toes as the Porsche gets well out of the way. Well done there for not impeding the race leaders. But it does look like Ramanmolana's having an easier time if the lap time is not quite coming to the car yet. And Huang is very much on edge in that Ferrari. Now, whether that's strategic, whether Roman Milano's trying to work his car as gently as possible, we'll find out in a little while time. But just look how hard this full pace racing driver's going. It's working for him because that gap now is down to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they're running around at their namesake. They are running around at full pace. But, I mean, I agree with you. I think Andika Ramalana, let's just watch how smooth. Yeah, obviously there's a couple of little corrections, and that's pretty normal for a GT car. But the actual language of the car, as you're saying, is smooth. There's nothing dramatic happening here. It's just in, through the corner, out of the corner. Nice and smooth. So how are you getting good drives? If you get those out of the corner every single time, then you're keeping the car behind at bay because you're getting the smooth exit. You're driving off as fast as possible, and the Mercedes is pretty quick in a straight line itself. The Ferrari might struggle to pass just based on how fast is in a straight line. I think this could be good for Andika Ramalana, although you can see there Huang is as close as ever running down towards the parabolica, and it kind of could be now or never for the Ferrari driver. Is looking to the inside of Andika Ramalana, down into the corner, commits on the brakes. Andika Ramalana does not fight it, drops back into second position, straight into the slipstream of the full pace racing car. Now, will there be fight back, or will Ramalana just hang on?
Yeah, Milano knows now, I think, that he's not got the pace of that Ferrari, and it would be a wise call just to stick with him now for a little while. Try and learn a little bit from the Ferrari, save some fuel as well in your Mercedes, and there he does, gets on the brakes very nice and early, doesn't even consider going to the inside of that 118 machine. And Andika Ramalana now, it's the consolidation phase for the Mercedes driver, for the Legion of Racers star. He knows he's not got the pace of those around him, so now it is a case of trying to minimise the amount of time lost. Fadli Rakhmat not a million miles away in third position as well. So Roman Milano's attention, I think, will start to be focused more on the car behind and losing as little time as possible rather than trying to take the fight to the new race leader.
See, I'm less sure. I think that might have been, in a sense, a bit of part of the plan. That was a little bit too early, though, into the first Lesmo. It could be they're going to turn the car up a little bit more, try and go on the attack. I mean, the last couple of when I said there's a bit of a wave from Andika Ramalana.
I do like it. Such a cheerful guy.
But this is the thing, does he look stressed? Does he look irritated? Does he look annoyed that Huang's got through? No, he doesn't. Looks in control still. And right now, yeah, if they sit in that sort of slipstream, this isn't actually that bad of a move. The last couple of lap times, remember when I was saying that they were around 48s? Last lap times have been in the 49s and fairly high in the 49s as well. The last lap time was a 49.8 from Andika Ramalana. My point being that there is plenty to go for in this battle to even sit behind Huang. I think it might well just be a bit of the fuel saving game. That Ferrari does look pretty quick, I'll give it that, but I certainly would not be ruling out the lead of the race car as this being in some form of their strategy. They just didn't fight the 118 at all.
No, absolutely. And Roman Milano, of course, a very experienced and talented driver, so he knows, often has the eye on the long game. Rather than worrying about the here and now, consider what's going to happen when the checker flag waves, as the Legion of Racers car is trying to do the best it can for its own performance over the course of the race. And the Ferrari, now given clean air, no longer having to follow the Mercedes, is making a few mistakes. And it's so difficult, isn't it, Lewis, that when you've followed somebody for such a long time, when you've got nothing in front of you, trying to spot your own braking zone, trying to turn in at the right point without a reference can be a little bit harder than it should be, realistically.
Surprisingly difficult. You think, oh, you've done all your practice by yourself, though. Surely it'd be easy, but it just isn't. We'll say lap times again. Last lap time from Huang straight into clean air, a 48.6. So regardless of the couple of mistakes that we saw, instantly into the 48.6s, but wide there at Lesmo 2, and this is just inviting Andika Ramalana to keep in touch. They are pulling away once again, though, of Fadli Rakhmat. Last lap time they were about 0.2 quicker, so that gap is kind of back out to growing. But Andika Ramalana does need to drive pretty perfect. If there's more pace left in the car, needs to find it right now, just to keep in touch, not to try and pass the Ferrari, but just to keep there. Again, though, with how easy that move was, I don't necessarily see that happening without there being a plan. That was kind of the you pass and I'll do my own race, thank you very much, because the only reason you wouldn't fight them is if you knew you were going to beat them. At this point in the race, that's the only way that it could really go. They're all competitors at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Huang has track position, does seem to have a slightly faster car at this moment in time, but it's coming much more difficult to the Ferrari machine. Let's have a look at Dafa Nabiel now. JMX Juniors, 9th position in the McLaren 720. That's the blue car that you've seen just go through your shot now. He's chasing down Taruna in the 35 Bentley Continental. This is 8th and 9th position out on the racetrack. These two are separated by just a few tenths of a second. Philippa Bakida is the next car up the road in P10, but of course she's got a 5-second penalty to serve at the next pit stop, and Bakida is 5.3 seconds away from the chasing car. So currently she's within the window to retain her track position when the pit stops all play themselves out in about 19, 20, 25 minutes. So Sean Madison down in 13th position for the 93 HPD Jazz Pro machine. Madison having a disappointing race, I think. Oh, there we go, carrying damage on that NSX as well. That'll explain why he's running so low down the running order as Nadiel looks to the inside, has that one covered is Nabiel, so he can't find a way past the Bentley Continental. The Bentley does a good job actually to get through the chicane as well, Lewis. It's so easy to run deep on the brakes as the defending car, compromise your exit and then be mugged on the way out of the corner, isn't it there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, let's say it's all momentum, and if you are overdoing any of the chicanes, it just opens you up to be passed into the next one. And once again, going on the defence, and it should potentially, that was going straight on, just on the grass a little bit too much, and was just pulled straight off the racetrack. There was Nabiel, and Taruna will hang on into the pit lane. Madison. Not sure what happened. We kind of think it was a solo error. Was inside the top 10 with 10th place, but unfortunately for the HPD Jazz Pro Europe car, clearly something major has happened with it. Being front end damage, there is only a few options it could be. Normally with those, it's a mistake that spat you off into one of the walls. Could have been done through the Roger, take a bit too much curb, go head on. I mean, it happens so many times out of either Lesmo 1 or Lesmo 2, just going out a little bit too far wide and then just slipping and going straight across the racetrack. Let's take a look at what happened to Madison. This is at Lesmo 1, so out too wide, just onto the grass, and just as the wall was sticking out, bang.
Now that is unfortunate. I think maybe it was the kiss as well from Bakida as he was getting back onto the racetrack. Couldn't quite tell from that angle, but that is really, really unfortunate for Sean Madison, and of course big damage on the front of that car. Not only aerodynamic, also potentially damage to the engine and the suspension. So Madison down pit lane, quick sharp to try and get that one repaired. Let's hope we see the 93 back out on the racetrack again and they don't call quits to their day, as still Nabiel, 9th position. That is Bakida in the 666 behind in position 10. So Bakida we saw just getting involved in that one. There we are, Sean Madison back out on the track, last position of those that are running.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, of all of my my thoughts and queries of the top grouping, by the way, Huang has started to pull away quite a bit on Adika Molana, pulled out another half second over the previous lap. So Andika Ramalana is driving back into the clutches of Fadley Rackmat. Could mean they're still playing the long game, but we do know the Merc's pretty aggressive on the fuel. Let's see, as we're riding on board with Philippa Bakida, if there was any contact. I don't think there was. It was just it was very close. I mean, it's a shame the wall sticks out in the way it does. I mean, it's kind of not quite in the same way because it was pushed into it, but for anyone that can remember back to 2016, I think it was, back at Newcastle in the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, when Craig Lowndes was pushed into the wall by Scott McLaughlin, where you have some of these walls that are around the racer where you're not necessarily expecting cars to go into them at that angle. But when they do, because there's a gap in the wall, it makes it so much worse if you go into it following along with a racing line.
Was that really 2016?
Yeah, it must have been 16. Wow, I'm pretty sure 17 was the first year that McLaughlin won. Yeah, I think it was. Was it 16?
Wow, that's gone fast. I remember watching that one. That is
might have been 17.
Still scary though, regardless of which one it is. How fast time flies by, and Yeah, wow, that is frightening. But
It was
that
17.
Naviel now. So we've cleared that one up. Philippa Bikina did not make any contact. Close as you could possibly get without making contact, but did not make anyway. So she should be safe in terms of the wrath of the stewards for that incident at least. And big shout out to Philippa Bikina actually. With this 5-second time penalty, she's doing exactly what she needs to do to gap the cars behind. And that's a very tiny little drive from the 666.
Like I say, considering all the issues that they've had, they're just aiming to score some points, and they're doing what they need to do right now to score those points. And this is obviously going into the final hour of the race, where there is going to be other opportunities. You'd hope, especially with their pace and how much they're closing in. I mean, they're closing in quite a bit on those ahead. Of course, Nabiel being the next one, and then Taruna the one after. I think Sweet might be a little bit too far up the road with an 11.2 second gap from the front of Taruna. But still, Bakina's chances to maybe put the Laundry House car up inside the top 8, certainly not over with, even with that 5-second time penalty, because they've closed it up to this point. If after the pit lane sequence they can come out and clean air, the likelihood is that that car could close that gap down once more and then get involved in this battle proper in the final parts of the race. So, like I say, I think this is it's a run of potential more so than what would be result. It's the whole thing of what you were saying earlier with Makita in general, is that the results list, the standings, they only tell half the story, and I think that's what's going to be when we look back on this race. The results are only half of what's actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. The usual form or the usual look, should I say, or roll of the dice for Bikina and for Laundry House in general is the pace is there, but the result not quite matching that pace, as Dafa Nabiel currently still 9th position, not really making much of an inroads again now to Taruna in position 8. And I do think that Philippa Bikina has the pace over these two cars, but she doesn't want to get too heavily involved in squabbling and losing time. She'll have firmly an eye on increasing the gap to Zheng in 11th position behind, making sure that that's 5 seconds plus to be nice and comfortable when that pit stop does work its way through. Luis Moreno, by the way, moved himself up in a 12th position in the number 88, 6.5 seconds behind Zhang as he chases down potential points in that Mercedes. And we've still got Madison out on the racetrack, the number 93, continuing to circulate despite the drama earlier on, which is good to see. 3.5 seconds, Lewis, between our two race leaders now. So Huang, very much the man on form.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just say, by the way, the gap. Apologies. No. It was stuck right in the throat. Sorry, apologies. The gap between Longley and Schmidt. I remember you having a moment like that at Paul Ricard.
Very much.
Yeah. Schmidt and Kim Longley, they were separated by less than a tenth. The sector split at the end of the first sector, I do believe, but then Schmidt has dropped back into the clutches of Farid. So clearly the pace in this Honda is just not quite there towards the end of this second stint, and you can see there that Kin Long Lee has gone. What a recovery drive, by the way, it is from them in that Aston Martin to get up into 4th position. That is outstanding.
Actually, that is a really good point. They've gone a bit quiet on the radar as Kin Long Lee in the 999. And as you say, first time I've really paid much attention to that car since it was running in and around 10th position. An outstanding drive, as you say, to get all the way up into 4th position for that Aston Martin, and potentially still got a little opportunity to close further down. We've got another round of pit stops still to go. It's a long way on the racetrack and a big ask in terms of time, but we've seen plenty of dramas in these kind of races before, so nothing is out of the equation until the checkered flag waves. And King Long Lee very much confident and on form so far. A good recovery from a very difficult start to this motor race, as Fadid now, Axel Academy, 6th position, really fancies his chances against the 888 Honda in 5th position. Smith holding on for dear life, but that Honda is starting to fall away in terms of lap time now. They're becoming detached from Kin Long Lee, so if Farid has anything left to give, it is the time to start executing that strategy, finding a way past the Honda and reeling in Long Lee. Can the Honda hold on? Can Smith keep that car in 5th position? Farid has plenty to say about that one, flashing the lights, though he's keen to make his way past.
Yeah, still no way to make that move just into Parabolica, but again, could just be waiting. Although, to be fair, for what we've seen of the Hondas around here, their straight line speed, surprisingly enough, has actually been at least somewhat okay. More so from the 93. We've not really seen too much of the 888. But either way, Axel Academy in this Bentley that we know, by the way, is going further on fuel mileage than the others. This will probably be going for another 20 minutes. Everyone else more so another 10-15 minutes. This one going even further than them. So, that means their final stint, or final stop rather, might be a fair amount shorter, and Axel Academy could see themselves up in 4th position. Speaking, by the way, of 4th position and targets, Philippa Makeda in the 666. Now, bear with me, because just seeing this from Andrew Lawrenson, the target is 4th or 5th. That is a bold choice. I mean, I was going to give them a round of applause if they could get up to 8th place, but the idea they're now targeting a top 5 as a potential, that's I think that's a little bit out of reach. But I mean, this is me sat here in the commentary booth, not looking at the numbers, not looking at what they have. We know how fast Makeda and Lawrenson are. If they could recover into a top 5, that would be amazing. That would be a real standout recovery drive. I think, realistically, they've got to aim for sort of like 7th or 8th. That would be great. But 5th? Whew, surely that's a bit out of reach. Surely.
Aim for the stars and you will always reach the clouds. Meanwhile, Fadley Rakhmat has done absolute wonders for JMX Phantom, 3rd position, but now he's all over the back of Andika Ramamolana, who's dropped 4.7 seconds away from the race lead. So Ramamolana was suggested that the car looked nice and compliant last time we spent any time behind the wheel of the yellow Mercedes AMG, but now the pace has fallen away. He's not able to keep with our race leader, and more importantly for this moment in time, he's not able to keep with Fadley Rakhmat for JMX Phantom, and this is looking very dangerous indeed for the 889. Rakhmat has the pace in the McLaren 720S, runs a little bit wide, kicks up some dirt on the exit of the corner, but that will not concern him one bit at all, as Rakhmat gets a great run down the straight, coming into Ascari. Ascari's not really an overtaking opportunity, but Rakhmat shows his nose anyway, tries to pressure Andika Ramamolana into making a mistake through the Ascari chicane, cruises all the curb and more, tries to get the best launch possible, coming down the back straight for the run in a Parabolica. The wise move is to stay with the Mercedes through the Parabolica and get the drag down the start finish straight to overtake on the brakes into turn 1, and Rakhmat is aware that this is the best strategy, sticks with Andika Ramamolana through the Alboreto corner, formerly Parabolica, takes the wide line, goes too deep, and that is the sting out of the tail of that move, at least for another lap.
Yeah, wow. I mean, again, great stuff. Got to say, for Fadley Rakhmat, this response after opening the stint with almost instantly a mistake, which I've seen happen before time and time again, where a driver has opened the stint, they've gone through a few corners, they've got to somewhere, like for example halfway around the lap like Ascari here, and then they've made a mistake. To say that has brushed that off would be an understatement. Like, superb pace from Fadley Rakhmat for JMX Phantom once the tyres have come up to temperature. Really is looking impressive, and potentially even faster than Huang, whether that gap's too big or not. I mean, for the final hour of this race, we do potentially have a 3-way fight. We're not necessarily sure which way it's going. It's really going the way of full-pace racing right now, but who knows where it will go in the final moments. By the way, when it comes to me throwing Laundry House under the bus, saying that was maybe too high of a goal, just being told, by the way, about their lap time averages and stuff, and that if you were to average it all out, they could get 5th. Genuinely so. They are going that quick right now. The gaps are coming down in the ways necessary to move them up into those kinds of positions. So who knows? They are aiming high, but they've got the calibre of driver to go and fulfil that view. Fadley Rakhmat once again still stuck on the rear end as Andika Ramamolana throws it. Do you see how high Andika Ramamolana got there going over the curb, departing Ascari? He was 4 wheels off the track, managed to land it and get on with it, but you can tell, I mean, he looks a little less comfortable than he was earlier when he was battling it out with Huang.
Yes, the pressure is on now, and of course we're coming in and around the pit stop window for the final stop of the afternoon, so this is critical times for these two drivers. Andika Ramanmolana will be desperate to hold on to that track position, but I fear now he's about to concede position as Rakhmat goes to the inside, gets nice and late on the brakes, does the McLaren. Andika Ramanmolana recognises that this is not going to be a fight he can win and drops down into third position, and that is a very nice overtaking manoeuvre indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a second position that Andika Ramanmolana did not fight. Of course, didn't fight Huang down into the Parabolica, didn't fight Fadli Rakhmat down into the Rettifilio. That is genuinely, that's odd to me. That's a bit bizarre. I'm not necessarily sure as to what the tactical goal is with that one, but
I can understand it though. I think in an endurance race like this, in a championship as well, remember this is not a one-off race, this is a point scoring championship. Sometimes you've just got to accept when you don't have the pace, and it's all about minimising the amount of time it takes you to get to the checkered flag. And the question is, does Andika Ramanmolana think he has what it takes to defend from a faster car for an hour and 5 minutes? I would suggest that would be a big ask. So let him go. Try and concentrate on your own race, minimise your own time loss, and then maybe this race will come back to you and the car and the team later on. And if it does, you want to put yourself in the best position possible to capitalise on that one. And frankly, for me, Ramanmolana's, there's nothing to be gained from fighting at this stage anyway with another car. 10 minutes to go, totally different story. Fight tooth and nail for that track position. But with an hour and change on the clock, sometimes you just got to say, yeah, today's not my day, or this moment in time, it is not my day.
It's just, I know, I get it. You know, where there's still so much time left in the race. No. It's not. I don't agree. It's that I don't agree. I don't see why you would be so casual about it, even at this point in the race. At least, like, you know, to that level. In the first kind of hour or so, then yeah, fair enough. I kind of get it, because that you really are playing the long game. But right now, we're approaching the final parts of this race. We're approaching the final pit stop. You want to fight hard, especially in a short championship like this. I'm not necessarily sure. There is Philippa Pekida though. 5 seconds, of course, will have to be served in the pit lane. They'll be pushing it a little bit deeper. They wouldn't be able to do about an hour and 3 minutes, hour and 2 minutes when they depart pit lane. Of course, you've got to think as well with the final stint and the 65-minute stint limit that we've got. You can't really pit now, because you've got to keep in mind that the race, I think they might actually be pitting. They're all right. You've got to accept that the race might go a lap longer than your prediction. And if it does, that's a penalty. Because if it goes a lap longer than you think it will, you're out on track for longer than the 65 minutes. That is a penalty. It will ping you, and that's, it's pretty harsh to have done an entire race only to get stopped in the final moments. Pekida, though, way off the road. Once again, we've seen that a couple of times, and now Pekida straight down the escape road and desperately needed that extra bit of tarmac.
And good reactions as well to recognise what was happening and do something about it. In reality, Pekida's lost absolutely nothing compared to the cars that she's racing. So good reactions from Philippa Pekida. By the way, she's gapped the car behind now to the tune of 7+ seconds. So that 5-second time penalty is on course for making near makes no difference to her track position. Of course, she'll lose some real estate to those around her. We're looking at Farid now in 6th position, still trying to find a way past Schmid ahead, and the 888 doing a good job in the Honda NSX to keep hold of that track position. So Farid will need to look a little bit deeper into himself to see if he can find a new strategy to make his way past that Honda. Meanwhile, Sweet is now 2.4 seconds in arrears, so that gap's starting to close between 5, 6 and 7.
Yeah, and this is what we're saying about them aiming, the likes of Pekida and that lot aiming for 5th place. This is why it is kind of on Schmid being basically just holding these all up at the moment. With it being fast enough in a straight line, it's just able to keep them at bay. Is this entering the pit lane? It is entering the pit lane there for Schmid. So diving down, we know that Farid is going longer on the runs. We know that this car will be out until basically there's 55 minutes, or well, probably even a bit less than that, rather, probably even close to about 50 minutes left to go in this race. They went all the way out basically to the end of the 65-minute window in the first stint. They'll probably not be taking it all the way out to the 65-minute window on this point, so maybe around about 52 minutes to go in the race. It means, though, their final stint will be shorter or their final fuel stop will be shorter. They have to put less fuel into the car. So could be an interesting one, but still, Sweet is closing in.
Yeah, exciting times now. So this is critical moments, ladies and gentlemen at home. This is in and around the pit stop window now for our final stop, all being well, of the day. Smid and Taruna, both drivers down pit lane. That allows Farid to move into 5th position, 6th position for Sweet. Bakida moves up into 7th, but don't forget, she has a 5 seconds in the pit lane added to her race time, so she will stop for 5 seconds longer than those cars around her. That should be just about enough to get her clear of the chasing pack. Nabiel actually is behind Philippa Bakida now, so she made an overtaking manoeuvre out on the racetrack. Nabiel 4.5 tenths behind, so the progression continues for our Laundry House drivers. Question for you, Lewis McGlade, keeping Bakida in, or do you put Lawrenson back behind the wheel of that 666?
Oh, I mean, Bakida's pace has been pretty nice at the moment. It's not an easy one because we didn't see the rest of Lawrenson's pace. It would be so easy to sit here and be like, yeah, well, Lawrenson made 2 mistakes. Boo-hoo. Everyone makes mistakes at some point. I don't think that would affect him at this point in the race. Has dealt with that, has already sorted that one out. I mean, to be honest, I'd almost want to switch them, but then you want to leave Bakida in the car. I'd switch them. I'd give it a go. I know Lawrenson's pace is pretty incredible. They both are. Either way, you've got 2 great drivers. I don't think you're losing out much, regardless of the call. It's not one of those ones where it's like the call that will change their fortune in the race. It's pretty much a 50-50 split. They can both get the job done.
Absolutely. Now let's have a look at Andika Ramanmolana. Look how much time the Legion of Racers driver has lost to Fadley Rakhmat since being overtaken a few short laps ago. Ramanmolana really struggling at this point in the race to get the best lap time out of that 889 machine. So let's have a look if Ramanmolana is going to jump down pit lane on this lap. I think he is. Will he stay in the cockpit of that car, or will he hand over to his teammate? We'll find out in a few moments' time. But Andika Ramanmolana from 3rd position, Huang in race lead, 66 laps completed, is also in pit lane, so Fadley Rakhmat will inherit the race lead during this pit stop cycle as we start to find plenty of excitement happening out on the track.
Yeah, this is it, right? So we're in the window. These are the ones that, like, obviously, final stops for all of these drivers. The likelihood is that some of these are going obviously a little bit further, just trying to again minimise that final stop, to make them a bit more comfortable in the final moments of the race. No one, at least from what I've seen, has come into the pit lane in risk of a penalty come the final moments of the race for stint limit violations and stuff. Everyone's looking very, very good. They're well researched in all of that. Kinlong Lee into the pit lane again. I think Farid will stay out on the racetrack, as would Jiang as well. The Bentleys tend to go a little bit further as we'll roll back down the order with Lowe and Madison, who are battling it out over what is the final position on track. Of course, the 102 retired from the race with technical issues. Jay Yang wasn't really able to get in the car and actually set any lap times. They had issues in pit lane even on the departure. Sean Madison's been in the barrier and is now just trying to try and get back into the mix. They've obviously reset the stint limit though when they came in to repair the damage, so they can actually go quite a lot further as Madison's going to make the move.
Yeah, good move by Madison, off strategy compared to those around him. And Lowe's having a difficult race. The 21 machine, of course, qualified all the way up on the second row of the grid, and they've had 1 or 2 dramas, but never really managed to make inroads to the rest of the cars around them. So that's a really disappointing day at the races for the number 21 machine. Of course, their teammate is all the way up in 5th position when the pit stops wind their way around with Farid behind the wheel, although I'm sure Farid will be handing the car over to Bernard Chan for this final stint of the race. Disappointing, I think, as a team, as a driver. How disappointing is it, Lewis, that you have such a good qualification result, you have a small issue at the start of the race, and you never get back in contention, yet your teammate is firmly in the points?
It's hard. It is. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but you know, it's one of those things. You just have to still learn from it. I mean, at this point, especially if your teammates up there, you can be some form of assistance to them. I don't mean by blocking. I mean by just providing data. they can. I mean, obviously in this kind of race it's less so, but you remember like in a rain where a race where it's wet or something, you can discuss tyre pressures or something. Obviously track conditions are always changing and evolving anyway, temperatures moving around, and they might say, hey, just play about with tyre pressures on your next stop, just to sort of maybe see if there's something else up for grabs, if there's something else that we can find on the racetrack. So it's not great, but you've got to think of the positivity as a team as a whole rather than the singular car.
Absolutely, and it's confidence to the team as well going into the rest of the season. You know, as a team, you can get the job done. You've got a fast car, you've got a fast setup underneath you. It's just a case of putting those building blocks together and getting a result for yourself. Meanwhile, now, Sweet has come down pit lane. Chen has indeed jumped behind the wheel of the 118 machine. So in a couple of laps' time, when everything settles down, we'll give you a quick rundown of who is who in the top 10 and how the pit stop sequence has changed the running order. Andika Ramalana retains that third position and stays behind the wheel of the car, which is a bit of a surprise to me that they're keeping Ramalana behind the wheel of the Legion of Racers car.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, again, to kind of like look at their pace, I mean, Andika Ramalana was running pretty decent lap times in comparison to Dylan Tam. They were running basically around the same towards the end of the stint. So, I mean, it's not necessarily... I kind of put them in the same boat when we were discussing the whole Bakita Lawrenson thing, is that regardless of which way you leave them around, you've got two drivers that are probably running roughly the same kind of pace. So, whichever way you go, you're not really losing out too much. There are some teams, right, where you know that there's one driver which is half a second, the second faster than the other driver, and that's where the decision is like, yeah, you need to get that faster driver in. Whereas with these guys, there's not too much between them. I mean, Philippa Bakita, she's so fast. Lawrenson is also so fast. So it's sort of, I mean, to be honest, flip a coin. Whatever. Either way, you're probably not going to lose out much. It's just, you know, if you're losing out time from stationary time in the pit stop.
Yep, and that's the great thing about a championship at this level. The level of each and every one of these drivers is just so incredibly high. There is fractions of a second between it. And Philippa Bakita now has come out in 10th position, so she did not lose any positions due to that 5-second time penalty to the cars that she was chasing her, and now she's just under a second away from Taruna ahead. So 9th position, she's set her sights on. Kelvin Chen is our race leader. Fadli Rakhmat is in 2nd position from Andika Ramalana, rounding out the podium places. Hyang in 4th, ahead of Yatlam Law in 5th position, with Sergei Mironenko 6th. Chan in P7, Floyd for the 546 Mercedes-Benz in position 8. Taruna, that we just mentioned in the Bentley Continental, is doing his best to fight off Philippa Bakita in 10th position. Nabiel currently in 11th. Woods doing solid work in 12th position, still in with a sniff of points, although that is increasingly looking less and less likely for the number 88 car. Hunter in P13. Madison, following the repair work done to the Honda, is currently in 14th position. Low P15, and Vegeta rounding out those cars that are running, with the 102 having retired earlier in the race with an so far undiagnosed technical issue.
Yeah, we never really figured out what that was, unfortunately, but it was very clear that it wasn't a driver. I think it was some form of technical fault, unfortunately, but it is what it is. I mean, ideally you want those things to happen in practice, but let's be honest, I don't know if you've ever had it, but they never really happen in practice. They only happen in the race. Any technical faults, oh, well, you've gone through 6 hours of practice, it's been fine. As soon as you do some laps in the race, boom, that's when your technical fault appears, but it is what it is. Philippa Bakita, though, I mean, look, they're in position. Laundry House are in position for where I thought was going to be a good result for them. They're inside the points, which would have been a good response. But they're eyeing something a bit further down the road, and with 50 minutes left to go, they can't waste much time behind cars. They've just got to get on with it as we focus on Madison, who had a little bit of a traffic behind, I think that might have been Andika Ramalana as traffic behind. Andika Ramalana, by the way, is not too far ahead of Jiang. Just 2.3 seconds between them.
Some more drama yet to unfold at the front of the field. Philippa Bakita very aggressive over the curbs now for the Laundry House car. As you say, Bakita cannot afford to waste any time whatsoever behind the bike of the number 35 of Taruna. So this has got to be the opportunity she needs to grasp with both hands if they've got any ambitions of taking that 5th position spot that was identified by teammate Andrew Lawrenson as the target for this beautifully liveried Laundry House Mercedes, and Bakina firmly in the slipstream of the Bentley Continental down the back straight now. Both cars very good in a straight line indeed, thank you very much. Can Bakina use that slipstream to her advantage? The Bentley does not go defensive. Bakina shows her nose coming into the braking zone now. This is the opportunity she needs to grasp. Good on the brakes, good on the turning, keeps the racing line, and that is a very tasty overtake on Taruna. Half of the job done. Position 9. Next, Floyd.
Yeah, superb stuff. I mean, like you say, could not waste any time. That had to be the position done there. Has a little bit of space now ahead to try and close down on Floyd. It was around about 4 seconds, if I remember correctly. It might be a bit longer, but yeah, 5.4 seconds between them. So has to get on with it, really. But, you know, it's got the pace. At 8.6 seconds, the gap for the race lead. And I did wonder this as to why Jiang was up there, because they'd yet to stop once again, so makes sense. As we hit the 50-minute mark, they are into the pit lane to relieve the pressure on Andika Molana, who can now really focus on Fadli Raknat trying to get up the order. 10 seconds separates the top 3. Will it be smaller or more by the time we get to the end of the race? Because, I mean, I don't know about you. I'd love to see it smaller, but I kind of think that the 118, by the gap that it's got, might be a little bit untouchable.
Yeah, it's feeling that way at the moment. That's a tasty, healthy advantage over Fadli Rakmat behind. The pace of the 118 has been very, very strong indeed. The only kind of the outlier that we can think into this one at this stage is potentially if traffic comes into play. But again, Monza, one of those circuits where it's relatively easy to work your way through traffic. There's not many big sections of corners, like Suzuka, for example, for the snake at the beginning. You get held up at the start of that one, you're losing seconds and seconds in time as Madison goes to have a look at the scenery, decides he does not like the look of that 100-metre board and goes camping out on the grass. So Sean Madison's day has not been a very good one, and he knows it as well. A little wipe of the forehead and a sigh. He can't wait for this race to finish. It's just been one of those days that you want to forget.
I've had those races. I feel for that
because when career of that man, so never
there's genuinely like a couple of races that I can think back to. There was one we did at the that was a big moment there from Lowe. We had a race in GTEs at the Nürburgring. Not the Nordschleife, just the Nürburgring Grand Prix, which I'm not a massive fan of myself anyway. And we were just driving around it, and I had a 2.5-hour stint, and I knew that I was slower than the people that we were racing with by about half a second. And all I'm doing is just going through this stint, and I'm watching that gap get bigger, 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 bigger every lap that went by. And I'm just sat there thinking, what am I doing in this car? Like it's so. It genuinely boils your blood because there's nothing you can do about it. You're just here doing your lap times. You're like a drone, just doing the lap times over and over again. You can't really find any more time. You're on your very limit, and it's just not going your way. And you're just sat there thinking, I've just got to get through the next 2 hours. It's painful because you just start clock watching. You're looking at the time, you're going, right, there's 47 minutes, 50 seconds to go, and you're counting it down, and it goes so slow. They are the longest laps of your career. It's really unpleasant.
And in that situation as well, it's so very easy to then lose motivational at the head drop, and then the pace becomes even slower. Or even worse than that is it's so hard to try and dig a little bit deeper and find lap time that you never had. And if by magic you think, if I try harder and drive faster, I'll find half a second, and that just leads to mistakes, off tracks, dropping a wheel on the dirt like we just seen there from Wicket Low. And that's when everything just starts to unfold as a driver and as a team, and everything compounds on top of each other and gets worse and worse and worse. And it's such a horrible position to be in. Meanwhile, just a quick update on Philippa Bakina. Now the pit stops have been served. She's actually 8th on the racetrack and only 3.9 seconds away from Ben Floyd in 7th. So that 5th position, that actually looks very, very doable indeed.
I mean, yeah, potentially. I mean, they've been absolutely flying. Again, this is what the numbers were saying, and I didn't believe it myself, I'll be perfectly honest with it, but these were the numbers that we were told by Michael Hamlet, who is in my ear, passing the odd bit of data, suggesting the idea that they could close it down. About a second a lap quicker than the two cars ahead at the moment is Filippo Bacchida, and then about half a second faster than Mironenko, who's running in 5th spot. So the gaps are coming down and down and down. So I know that Filippo Bacchida has got plenty of fans out in chat, so I'm sure they'll be running wild at the moment at this knowledge and news that Andrew Lawrenson isn't crazy, that they can do it.
So where does the Mercedes sit on the scale of tyre wear performance in comparison to the cars immediately ahead, which are the Aston Martin and the Honda? Is it a car that you can rely on to be strong at the end of a stint by comparison, or have we got something to worry about there for Bacchida?
I don't think any real car's got major issues on tyres around here. I mean, it's not the highest tyre wear circuit, so even those that are fairly high on tyre wear aren't really going to struggle that much. Think back to yesterday when we were doing the European Sprint, and the Porsches all started to struggle a little bit later in the race. Doesn't really happen around here. There's just not enough load going through the tyres around this track. You think of it this way: you go around the Parabolica, which is pretty hard on the front left, and then you've got a nice long straight to cool it down into a slow corner around the Curva Grande, which doesn't really burn your tyres out, into another slow corner. Then you've got the Lesmos, which are pretty quick, into a big straight, into Ascari, which is fairly high load but not that much, into a straight, and it's just, you've got so much time to cool the tyres down the straights that they just don't really go that far on like the burning side of you. So I don't foresee any real tyre issues in this race for anyone. It's just about what you do in the car. It's usually if your fuel mileage is critical, and whether you've got enough in the tank. That's where the Mercedes kind of falls a little bit foul in comparison to the other cars, is it burns its fuel a little bit more aggressively. So that's the side they need to focus on a bit more. But based on where they pit, based on how they've been running, I don't foresee any fuel issues even for that car.
Fantastic stuff. So it is just a case of which driver can deliver the best performance and best result between now and the checkered flag in 44 minutes time. If you just joined in the broadcast, welcome. It's great to have you with us. This is the opening round of the SRO Esports Asia Endurance Series here from the Monza Grand Prix circuit in Italy. A delayed championship. It's great to get it back on the road once again. Of course, the Asia Series runs for the Sprint Championship as well, which has been an incredible show of talent from all of the drivers out on the grid, and it looks like the Endurance Championship is very much forming up to be more of the same again. We only had 17 cars start this delayed first round of the championship, but the racing has been top class from the top all the way through to the bottom of the grid. The 102 is our only car that's retired so far in this race with a technical issue during the pit stop. Everybody else is still out on track, and it's currently led by Kelvin Chen in the Ferrari as a healthy advantage over Fadley Rakhmat in second position, with Andika Ramamolana currently holding on to third position, 3.7 seconds in arrears ahead of the chasing pack.
Whew, look at that from low, trying to get past Hunter around the outside of the Parabolica. That could be superb, but Hunter should be able to hang on. I think they'll be a little bit disappointed with Hunter in that 5.67. It's still, by the way, getting around there. I was going to say it should be an easy move to hang on to. Absolutely not from Lowe, who is now fully alongside on the start-finish straight. That was superb around the outside of the Parabolica. Unfortunately for them, the McLaren is just about fast enough to keep them at bay, but I could expect Lowe to fire it in on the brakes, nearly closed off by Hunter, but still, that was super tight. Unfortunately for the 5.67 for the Octane Community Simsport car that was up higher up in the order. I mean, they've had their issues today. I think a few cars will be pretty disappointed with how this day has unfolded, but that you could definitely throw them into the list of the what could have been. Pretty sure everyone's in that boat, but still.
And we said that, didn't we, at the start of the show today. This is the first race of the Endurance Series for the Asia Esports Championship drivers. So there's a lot of unknowns for some of these drivers. It's unknown endurance racing potentially for some of the less experienced stars, and it's certainly unknown for endurance racing in this particular field against these particular teams and drivers. So a lot of learning, a lot of hiccups have happened up and down the grid, but they'll take away everything that they've learned today. Each and every driver, each and every team will take away a lot of learning from today's activity, and they can apply that for the next time we join the Asia Esports Endurance Series. So yes, you want points, yes, you want a good result, but the key is just get to the checkered flag. Take as much out of this race as you possibly can. If that pays you some points at the end, happy days. If it doesn't, not a problem. Reset, start again next time out, because we've seen this so many times. Yes, we've got a runaway race leader, the 118, dominating proceedings. They have a bad round next time. If they make a mistake and get taken out at T1 at the next race, everything's to play for the championship all over again.
Yeah. Absolutely, you don't know how this championship's going to unfold. This could be your one and only time to win a race. It could look as if one team's dominating here, but they don't dominate the championship. It's just not necessarily how it works. Speaking of dominating, by the way, full pace racing, we say that gap might be a little bit too big. Is it too big? It was 8 seconds. It's now 5.7. Vadeli Rakhmat's closed that in quite a lot over the last 15 minutes, and once again the gap's coming down, and it's also dragging Andika Ramalana with him as well. Remember how I said that it was around about 10 and a half seconds between the top three? That's down to 8 now. They are starting to come together a bit more once again, the top three.
So we've got 40 minutes left on the clock. The top three are forming up quite nicely indeed to have a race to the checkered flag. And Vadeli Rakhmat, as you say, showing some good pace, down to 6 seconds now. So that's changed a little bit over the course of the last lap. So Rakhmat seesawing up and down the timing at the moment. Is Kelvin Chen just managing that gap for full pace racing at this stage? Not taking too much out of himself, and the car saving for a potential spurt towards next. There's no point pushing if you've got nearly a 10-second lead. Or do they not have the pace of Vadeli Rakhmat behind? That is a big question that we'll find out in 39 minutes and change. And can Andika Ramalana dig deep and show some of the sparkle, some of the fun that we've seen from him in previous SRO Esports Championships? Oh, I do like endurance racing. I like how we've waited 2.5 hours to build up to the final 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's always how it goes in these kind of races. They just come back together again, especially with the level of competition we have across the board here in SRO Esports. I'm not necessarily sure if it's just controlling pace. I will say that Andika Ramalana, not on the lap that he's just completed, which was a 48.8, but on the lap before that, it was a 48.3, which was a personal best lap time for that car. So they are getting quicker. They were all separated by 0.2 on the timesheets, with the race leader being the slowest of the trio on the previous lap. So the gap's coming down. At the moment, I'll be fair to them, at least over that lap there. If they can complete laps on this kind of lap time, 49 zeros, with this kind of time left in the race, unless Rakhmat and Ramalana start doing incredible lap times very, very consistently, i.e. in the mid to low 48s, which they're just not really able to do, then to be fair, they should be safe. That's kind of what you need to do. You need to work out right now what your minimum target is, right? You need to work out, okay, if we were to lose 0.3 a lap, what kind of lap time do we need to do based on their average lap time right now and what's possible? And as long as you kind of hit that lap time consistently, it's not that daunting. The gap will come down, yes, but you're in control of it. That's kind of how you need to view it at the moment. But it is coming down quite a lot. Last lap time there, 49.0. Vadeli Rakhmat, 48.3, 7/10 on the last lap.
Excitement at the front of the field, excitement further down as well, as Philippa Bakida finds her way past Ben Floyd, so has closed that gap down and immediately overtaken the 546 Mercedes-Benz. So Bakida now has another 2.2 seconds to find to get Chan in 6th position. So the chase for that 5th place continues for the Laundry House Mercedes-Benz, driven by Philippa Bakida. Good result for them, as we're looking now still at Kelvin Chen in the race lead. As you say, doesn't have the pace at this stage in the race to extend the lead, but does he have enough left in the tank to consolidate that race lead? Vadeli Rakhmat will certainly hope not, and he's pulling along with him, and Andika Ramalana in 3rd position. So it's all hotted up very much indeed here in SRO Esports. Meanwhile, Woods has moved himself up into 11th place, so just one place away now from point scoring positions. Nabiel holds the bump spot at the moment in 10th position, so Nabiel will be hoping this race comes to its conclusion sooner rather than later, and Woods will be hoping that 3.5 seconds can be found very quickly indeed, because, as we've said before, catching is one thing, passing is a very different thing indeed, and when you're fighting for the last points, Nabiel will be most keen to retain, because 11th is the most soul-destroying place you can finish in a race, just one outside of the points.
Yeah, these guys are just battling well outside of it, but they're just having their own little battle as Hunter is defending, running down in towards Ascari, and Lowe's going to try and go around the outside. Hunter with the preferred line, though, a little bit of a brush between the two, and to be fair, that is a brave man there of Daniel Hunter. If I was in a McLaren, I'd not really want to be bullying a big Bentley like that, but still very much in control of his car. Absolutely. By the way, other battles that are quite close. After Bakida got past Floyd, Floyd has dropped back into the clutches of Taruna as well. So other battles are emerging on the grid, as well as Bakida closing in quite quickly into the rear end of Chan as well. So we've got a few happening inside the top 10, and I was expecting to be talking about biscuits by this point, Paul, but we've not had the chance to reach that point because the racing has been pretty intense.
Yeah, it's been a really good introduction to the Endurance Series for the SRO Asia Esports Championship. I just want to talk about Filippo Bakida again. When we mentioned him moving up in a 7th position, she caught and passed Floyd within the same lap. It was 2.2 seconds the deficit to Chan in 5th place. That is now 1.4, so Filippo Bakida certainly has the pace underneath her in that laundry house machine. This is Arwin Taruna now, 9th position. Just ahead is Ben Floyd, that has been dispatched by the Mercedes off the 666 car. So Floyd not in a comfortable position at this stage, does not have the confidence, does not have the pace underneath him so far in the 546 machine. Can Floyd hold on? Will Arwin Taruna? We've not seen much of the Legion of Racers car, but he's still on course for a reasonably solid result if things continue the way they are. 9th position with 8th firmly in his sights.
Yeah, this is looking like it could be a pretty interesting race between some of this, because this is where, I mean, look, we saw Andika Ramalana not fight earlier, and we were kind of saying that, yeah, you were saying that it might just be where he's not risking anything, not trying to lose any time, and if it were the final half hour of the race or something like that, they'd start fighting hard. Well, we're approaching the final half hour of the race, so these drivers are going to start fighting hard. These are the positions they're going to be fighting for to the checkered flag. And in an endurance race where the intensity, normally you'd assume it's a bit lower, not necessarily the case. Once again, we've seen this happen before with Lowe going around the outside of Hunter at the Parabolica. Didn't make it all the way around the outside a couple of laps ago. Has done once again, but Hunter's straight line speed in that McLaren is normally a little bit better. This time, though, with the momentum built off the corner from the Axel Academy car, the number 21 of Lowe, looks like it might be good enough at least to draw level coming down and towards the Rettifilio. It's going to be close, and I think Hunter is going to be down the inside, around the outside. There's a little bit of contact as well for good measure to depart it towards Curva Grande. I'm still not sure which way this is going to go.
The drag race now down into the next chicane. Hunter is on the outside, the massive by comparison Bentley Continental is to the inside. This is once again going to be a case of who can break latest. Will they give each other racing room? Yes, they will. Hunter decides it is wisely not worth going too wide into the chicane, but he uses that to get the launch off of the corner, which is exactly what you need to do. But the Bentley is wise to that manoeuvre, and Hunter is disappointed, no doubt, to be in 15th position, but I am absolutely sure he's thoroughly enjoying this fight with Lowe.
Well, one position has been made up by an Axel Academy car. A few positions have been lost by the other one. The number 22 car, driven by Chan, that was running up in 6th position, not only has lost the position to Bakida, but has lost it to Floyd Taruna and Nabiel as well. There has been a mistake, an incident from Chan. We'll try and get a replay of what happened to the 22, but clearly there's been some issues. Oh, and Hunter's off the road. He is going to rejoin, but that was pretty costly himself, but pretty tight. Woods has also got through. Let's take a look as to what happened to the Axel Academy car. Well, we've seen this with the Bentley before. Is it going to be too much curb? Oof, no, not quite. But it's going to be too much gravel on the exit. It's going to be into the barrier as well. That's such a shame for the 22. They'll be able to rejoin, but look at how many cars go through.
Yeah, that is so desperately unfortunate. Just literally a case of 1 or 2 inches too far off the racetrack. There's no grip on the gravel. The car suddenly loads up and away you go straight into the scene of the accident. Damon Wood's now 10th position. So, we were speaking about Woods earlier. He has now inherited that point scoring position courtesy of the issue for Chan. That's exactly how far that Chan's dropped down from being within the top 6 to outside of the points now, and with just 31 minutes left on the clock. That is so close to the checkered flag to have such a significant issue, as Arwin Taruna is the man on the move again. Floyd moves back in to 7th position courtesy of the issue from Chan. So Taruna on course for another good day at the races here in the number 35 machine. Can he find a way past now? Because this fight has been brewing for quite a few laps, and so far Bentley does not have the answer to the Mercedes ahead.
Yeah, still struggle to make that move. I mean, to be fair, that's the thing, is that we've seen a Mercedes pass a lot of these cars, in the sense of Bakida's passed quite a few. Makes you kind of think that the Mercedes is pretty quick in a straight line, and just that helps on defence as much as it does in attack as well. And so for this at the moment from Floyd, just not passed by Taruna behind. Kind of needs to be a mistake then, if that's the case, which does then mean that Arwin Taruna needs to kind of find a way of putting Floyd offline, of distracting him, and flashing the lights does not help. Just trying to drag that car offline, trying to defend clean air, which is easier said than done, but you've got half an hour to try and figure that move out, because I don't actually get the feeling that they're going to be fighting for much further up the road than where they're presently fighting. I think this is just a battle for 8th until the checkered flag.
And while these two are squabbling away, look who's starting to get involved in this fight. Nabiel and Woods just behind. Not be long if these two continue as they are until Nabiel and Woods join this and make it a 4-way battle for a 7th position. So Ben Floyd is very much the man under pressure. He could conceivably drop from 7th place down into 10th and potentially further if this fight continues too much longer, and if the Mercedes cannot find the pace somewhere deep down within themselves to start gapping this Bentley Continental behind. So Floyd now is very much the man under the most pressure on course on the racetrack at this moment in time, and Taruna, he'll know that this grid is starting to, this field is starting to close him down, and that's going to add a little bit of urgency to the Legion of Racers drive. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that at all. Oh dear, that was messy. Taruna just leaving the nose hanging in no man's land on the inside. I think they avoided contact. I believe Floyd was aware of what was happening and had to get the car sideways to avoid bringing the two of them together, but that is immediately just gift wrapped 2 seconds to Nabiel behind, who all of a sudden, from someone thinking about being involved, is very much involved for this fight for 7th.
Yeah, that was pretty close for Taruna on the Floyd there, just kind of leaving your nose down the inside. We've seen that a couple of times throughout this race, and we do see it quite a bit just in racing, as there, you're trying to find any sort of gap you can. Leaving it down there was fair enough. It was a bit of a dive. I think more Floyd thought that Taruna was overcooking the corner too much, and Floyd was nearly losing it himself, but all managed to stay on the track, so all's fair at the moment. And back on board then with Nabiel running it over the chicane at Ascari. I say, very much a part of this mix. This McLaren's pretty sharp in a straight line. It's been able to make some moves throughout the day, but the JMX Junior driver, a few positions down on the JMX Phantom team that's running on the podium, it's not been the greatest day for the JMX team in general. I mean, when the consideration that they were leading early, that we were talking of them potentially even winning this race at one point, and that's kind of fallen by the wayside. The fact they've still got 2 cars inside the top 10, I think that'll be at least, well, their 2 cars, they don't have more than 2. That, I mean, it's a pretty good consolidation for the day's work.
Absolutely. In endurance racing, any kind of finish in the points can be considered a good end result. As we're looking at Dafa Nabiel now very, very much closing in to this fight, and Nabiel's that excited he's trying to climb inside his monitor to get involved in the race. And there we go. Look, no, we can't make that, so we'll just hold back a little bit. 9th
it's
position.
VR. That's how I race, though. I race like it's like sat bolt upright because you're just trying to get close to the screen. It's terrible.
But now it's working very well indeed for Nabiel at this moment in time. 9th position, but he is very much closing in on these two. And while they concentrate on each other, this is Nabiel's opportunity, as he's closing that gap down, to study a little bit the rivals ahead of him. Just look at what they're doing, where they're fast, where they're slow, where Taruna is looking to the inside of Floyd, where he can study that, the body language of that Bentley, and understand where Taruna thinks himself is fast. And then Nabiel can take that information and use it to his advantage. This is, out of the three of them, Nabiel's the guy I'd rather be, because I think he's got the best opportunity of making his way past this little gaggle.
But he keeps dragging himself up to it and then dropping off of it. Have you noticed that? It's down to about a second again. I don't think he's necessarily got the pace to clear them right now, which is a bit of a concern. Floyd, once again, hanging on from Taruna. The straight line speed of that Merc is just about enough, but dragging out of slipstream was Taruna there, just trying to line up into the Parabolica and then try and fire one down the inside once again at T1. And it's where he left his nose down the inside and Floyd had to get out of the way. Will that happen once more? Well into the slipstream, dragging them from one side of the circuit to the other, and Floyd should be able to hang on now, but Bentley's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and somehow even bigger than that. Is there going to be a dive to the inside? There's a look though, there's a proper send that might be overdoing T1. See you, mate, you are going straight on there, and the 546 will be able to repass. It was just in way too deep for Taruna, and Floyd should be able to get back through. A bit of a flash of light saying, yeah, please, that was pretty not fair, mate. You've got to drop that one back behind me, son. And I think we'll do so before we hit the Roger. That could have been ending in tears pretty quickly. He's gained clearly quite a bit out of that, in the sense that he is now sat right on the 5 or 6. They were pretty close anyway, but I'd suggest after a mistake like that probably should drop a little bit further off. Either way, by the way, at the front of the field, the gap between Chen and Rakhmat, 3.4 seconds. It came down a further near half second on the previous lap. 48.9 for Chen, a 48.5 for Fadley Rakhmat. So the gap is coming down more and more and more. I think within the final 10 minutes of this race, could be down under a second.
Yeah, that one is one that's going to brew all the way through to the checkered flag, so we'll keep half an eye on that one. But let's firmly concentrate on Arwin Taruna at this moment in time. The Bentley, despite his heroics, but not into T1, still in the slipstream, firmly in the slipstream of Ben Floyd ahead. And as we've seen, this Bentley Continental, with the aid of the tow from the car in front, can be a very potent machine in a straight line. So Taruna now, he had a go last time round to turn one. He's understood where the braking zone is, but there we go, too wide, far too wide through Alboreto. That's going to compromise his exit. That has taken the sting a little bit out of this attack, and Nabiel is not too far behind as well, just keeping a watching brief. We know the McLaren is very slippery in a straight line as well, but what I was going to say is the Legion of Racers car has tried late braking into T1. He's learned something, maybe not learned enough though, because he almost collects the back of the Mercedes, does well to avoid contact, and now Nabiel is firmly in the picture to try and find his way past as well. So Arwin Taruna twice now in 2 laps into T1 makes mistakes, and these could prove to be costly.
Yeah, that was again another something a bit too desperate almost, but still I think has the pace to close back up, and Nabiel is very, very close himself, but I just don't see that car having the pace. One car I do see having the pace though, which would be concerning this group maybe ever so slightly, is Woods, who is closing in once more. We know that Woods is pretty quick himself. If that car gets hit, it's a Merc, should be good in the straight line. Oh, a bit too wide there out of Lesmo too, though. I mean, are we saying that 7th is up for grabs for Woods after some of the issues that we've seen today? I mean, potentially so.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be their target, I think, at this stage in the race. There's still plenty of racing left to go. 22 minutes as Taruna sideways through the Ascari chicane. So Taruna's not giving up for Legion of Racers. But as you say, Woods still detached from this fight. Quite a bit of ground to make up. But the more these 3 cars squabble, the more they fight amongst themselves, the quicker that Damon Woods will jump onto the back of this fight. Don't count him out. That bright yellow Mercedes, 1 point's nice. 7th position's even nicer still. Meanwhile, Filippo Bakida, they had a target in 5th position. Sergei Mironenko is currently the man that holds that position. Bakida, 4.3 seconds in arrears, 22 minutes left on the clock. It's a big task, but it's certainly possible, and Bakida continues to chip away at that one. But the closest fight out on the racetrack for sure is this fight that we're looking at now, headed by Ben Floyd, Arwin Taruna, position 8, and Daniel Nabiel in 9th place, all fighting for the same bit of track.
I mean, this is why I like endurance race good stuff. We need calendars like what we have here, even if they're quite small. What we've seen over in the European endurance is the look back to the inside from Nabiel, still no move to be made there. But it's a calendar that not only visits cool circuits and all that kind of stuff, but has differing lengths of endurance race. Because I don't like the idea, and I've seen this before, where you've got an endurance series and they run 4-hour races, and then they have one 1-hour race, and that's it. That's all you get. Just it's all essentially the same strategy throughout the season. It's boring. I like the idea to spice it up. You get a 3-hour race, which isn't really an endurance. It's full on attack. Then you have a 6-hour race. You've got a 10-hour race, just to see how you're going to strategize your way through all different styles of racing, and it kind of provides entertainment from start to finish. But it also provides different cars heading towards the front, because the longer the race, the more so a car like a Bentley is better, because they can really take it to the end of every fuel window. They're great on that style of racing, just because they've got a big tank. Whereas you kind of, for a short race, you kind of want something a bit more like a Merc, something a bit more, yes, it's thirsty, but you can still just go on the attack. It's very, very interesting to have that differing style. I'd say at the moment the Mercs are looking pretty good around here, in the consideration that we have 4 on the grid and all 4 are inside the top 10. Whether one's about to be dropped a position, though, because Floyd is about to be knocked at the door once more. And guess who it is? You're absolutely right. It's Taruna once again going around the outside at the Rettifilio. He's there, though, and he's been tapped back around, though, and he's going to gain that position. And also coming through the middle of it is Nabiel.
Nabiel will be able to thank his lucky stars as he concentrates now on trying to get himself stuck into this battle. Floyd loses 1 position. Will he lose 2 positions? I think he's just about safe, is Ben Floyd, but he will feel disgruntled about that manoeuvre, as will Taruma. Both drivers competing over the same bit of tarmac. Unfortunately, there's only room for 1 car, but luckily for them, they keep it going, and that allows Woods now to say, hello, I'm here, I want to play, this looks like fun, and I fancy my chances. So Woods has gone from quite a bit further away to absolutely well and truly in the midst of everything, and this is just what we wanted to see. What a grandstand final 19 minutes we have in front of us here at Monza.
Yeah, absolutely. This is superb stuff. And once Woods is a part of this battle, it becomes even tighter. Unfortunately for the likes of Chan, Zhongzhou, Madison, Lowe, Hunter and Fujita, they are all probably not going to contend for points there unless something happens in this grouping, which don't rule that one out, as Woods is so far wide there. Running through the final corner and saying, no, it's fine, don't worry about it, I'm focused on what I'm doing on my bright blue headset. I can even see that in the reflection. That is quite bright. I mean, there is so much pace in this car. Woods was incredible in the first parts of the race. Unfortunately got involved in some early incidents and received a drive-through penalty, but this car is quick. Do not mistake that. And so for Legion of racers, they could absolutely see themselves on a one-way trip up towards 7th position right now, but they just need to find a little bit of time, really get in that slipstream, really get on it, which they might need a little bit of help from the chase, from the pack ahead rather, to just battle a bit more.
And to be honest, the pack ahead are doing exactly that, squabbling hard. In fact, it's getting to the point now where it becomes a little bit worrying that this feels like it's got more contact ahead of it rather than clean overtakes, as Nabiel, now we're looking at the number 20 machine, is still gamely hanging on to the back of Floyd and Taruna ahead. We wondered if Taruna, once passed, would be able to clear this little fight, but it doesn't seem like Floyd is keen on giving it up. He's holding on quite nicely to the Bentley Continental, using the straight line speed, using the slipstream to his advantage, and he's trying to keep Taruna within play, so when we get to that start-finish straight, he can have an attack down into the chicane. But as you say, while these squabble, while this fight continues, that gives confidence to Woods, and although he's closed up onto the back of him, he's not actually as heavily onto the rear of this fight as I thought he would be. So maybe Woods still not quite got the ultimate sharp speed. He indeed, sideways through Ascari. Maybe Woods has not quite got the pace at this stage to genuinely get into contention with these three.
Yeah, which actually kind of surprised me a bit much because we've seen a few pretty big moments. Some massive ones, massive size. I mean, look at how much he slid there. Look at how much he exceeded on the exit of Ascari on the previous lap. The car's being pushed very, very hard, and it's just not really a part of this battle yet, despite the gap being roughly where it kind of should be a part of this battle. It kind of says that there's something else going on there, that maybe Woods isn't wanting to be a part of it. That seems insane if he's not wanting to, because he's throwing in all the pace. He's trying to be a part of it, but I don't think there's enough pace there in the 88, which I'm actually a bit surprised by. Whether that will last for the next 16 minutes, we'll have to wait and see. Gap for the race lead, by the way. I think there has been enough of a response from Chen. Remember how I said earlier that they need to target a lap time and just constantly hit it and try and hold that gap? Well, that's exactly what Kelvin Chen has been doing. He's been kind of lapping in the mid 148s. Last lap time was a 148.6. Fadli Rakhmat was faster by 0.2, which isn't enough. This could be good for full pace racing. If these lap times can just be ticked off, constantly stay in the mid 148s, maybe even the lower end of the high 148, this gap isn't going to come down enough, I don't think. And that then passes it back to Fadli Rakhmat to see, right, you need to find something very, very special if you want to win the opening race of the season. What else have you got?
Yep, absolutely. Playing the strategic game, although Chen is certainly not leaving any lap time on the table. We've seen him for 2 corners. First time we've seen Kelvin Chen for a while. On both of those occasions, he gives the grass a bit of a haircut on corner exit. So Chen is certainly not holding back too much in this full pace racing Ferrari 488 GT3, and it's great to see this fight continue, even if they're not racing necessarily on the same piece of tarmac. Make no mistake, Kelvin Chen and Fadli Rakhmat are pushing for all they are worth, and that is brilliant to see. And don't forget, the Ferrari is a competitive car here at Monza. In the in the Sprint Series and the Endurance Series in the European Championship, it was a Ferrari that took the checkered flag first. So we know this car works very, very well indeed. Not really seen much from McLaren in the corresponding European races. So Fadli Rakhmat very much following his own little trend going on so far in the Asia Series. Look how far Woods has dropped back now. So what is happening to Damon Woods? No pace, it seems, in that car at this stage in the race.
Yeah, I just don't really know. I don't want to be too harsh to the poor guy, but I expected more, to be perfectly honest. I expected that car to close up to this and kind of slice through them a little bit, knowing that the Merc's pretty quick.
Could it be fuel burn?
Potentially, but then surely they would have got themselves in reason. Look at how wide he is there, going through Lesmo 2. There's more time lost. I think maybe he's overcooked his tyres. Maybe they tried doing something different earlier on. I don't know. But either way, one thing that we do know for sure is that car is not quick enough at the moment. And Damon Woods is overdriving it a little bit and just isn't driving himself into contention in the battle between Taruna, Floyd and Nabiel, as they will continue their fight. And I have no doubt this will go down towards the checkered flag. Maybe even with a bit of a sneaky drag race, we hope. That I'd very much like to see. Taruna, though, does lead the group now. Floyd behind, and as I said, Nabiel just sat there in ninth spot, letting things unfold. The McLaren's not really fast enough to slice past them, but an opportunity might be opened somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ben Floyd's now is dropping a little bit away from the rear of Taruna. Nothing spectacular, still very firmly in contention, but up until this point, it's becoming increasingly aggressive between these drivers. So if I'm the likes of Daniel Nabiel or Damon Woods, I wouldn't be entirely betting against one of these, at least one of these positions, coming my way free of charge by means of these two holding themselves up, either through overtaking manoeuvres or contact out on the racetrack. And I dare say that is what Nabiel is banking on at the moment. Just look how aggressive Ben Floyd's body movement is on the car. He's looking to the inside, he's looking to the outside. There's no gap being given. He'll be frustrated, of course, because of Teruma's run through the chicane at the start of the lap a few laps ago as well. So he knows now he's really, you can feel it in the car, can't you, Lewis? You can see just from the demeanour and the body language of that car that Floyd is, I don't want to say frustrated because I think that's being unfair, but he's not afraid to be aggressive in this next 12 minutes, I fear.
But this is where you need to have, your supreme car control and confidence. You need to know exactly. It sounds stupid, but you need to know exactly where you can brake to pull it up for the apex of any corner. And because obviously when you're in the slipstream, you're going slightly faster, so you have to give yourself slightly different brake markers. You know that it's 110 going into this corner. Where you need to find your braking point or whatever. You're 110 meters away, but now, if he knows exactly where it is, this point in the race, you brake at that point and not a second earlier. Nothing. You brake exactly on the point where you know, because that way you're either closing that gap up as much as possible, or that is what's allowing you to create a dive. The moment that we see these crazy moves is when someone tries to brake past that point, i.e. something very, very impossible indeed. This time, though, Floyd's gone to the outside into the Rettifilio. No way to pass there. That Bentley is just hard to pass. He spun himself around. I'm not sure what happened there. I think that might have been solo from Taruna. Have to check that one out. I mean, it's weird to see a car spin by itself there. I didn't quite see if Floyd got involved now. I don't know what you saw.
Not quite. I'd like to see that one again, but the question I've got now is, does that open the door for Woods? Because Nabayel got involved in that one as well as Taruna. So has that opened the door for Woods to sneak through? Yes, it has. So that's exactly what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, that Woods maybe can count on some contact or some kind of drama to gift wrap him a place. And not only is he giving him one, he's giving him two positions. So Damon Woods, thank you very kindly indeed. I will take that with pleasure. And let's see if we can watch it again to see if Ben Floyd did get involved, because if he did, stewards might have something to say about it.
I just caught that on the on a slight delay. There was definite contact. There was definite contact. I was thinking, I was like, it's so weird to see a car pitch around that quickly unless something weird has happened. But yeah, it was contact. Didn't want to jump to that conclusion there without really spotting again, but there was absolutely contact between Floyd and Taruna there. Obviously, we'll take another look at it, and race control will be all over it, and it could mean that Woods could jump to the head of the train, as you were saying, basically without putting any work in. Which would be pretty handy. Whether Taruna, though, will be able to respond, we'll have to wait and see, because Taruna is now knocking at the door to grab that position back from Woods.
Yeah, that is exactly what we're saying about showing a bit of aggression, putting the car in places where risk is associated. And unfortunately, at this level, these sort of speeds, if you do that too many times, if you knock on the door of chance too many times, then often it will open it and punch you in the mouth. And that is exactly what has happened there, unfortunately. Let's have a look at the replay now. So we're riding on board. That is Taruna ahead of us. We're on board with Ben Floyd. We're going to go to the outside into the braking zone. That's trying to pressure the Bentley into running deep into the corner. There's a light amount of contact there, and then a much heavier one. That's what spins the Bentley around. And I'm sorry to say it, but that is a slam dunk. Sorry, my friend. Come say hello to the pit lane, because you've been a naughty boy.
Yeah, I don't think race control will sit on that one for too much longer. That one seems like it's pretty much an as easy call as it gets. You've the ruling on that one's pretty simple. If you've spun a car around or something like that, and you don't relinquish the position or give the time back, if you do, it's like a 10-second time period, I think it is. But if you don't, then it's a slam dunk drive-through penalty, which would actually drop them out of the points and promote the number 22 back into it after their issues today. So that would be pretty helpful. Of course, Chan recently had an issue in that number 22 car running through the Ascari chicane, where we've seen a couple of Bentleys off. Back up the order as Bakida is up in 6th position and is trying to close in on that elusive top 5 they were speaking of earlier. Last lap time, not quite fast enough to go and close down to Mironenko. I think 6th place is absolutely fantastic for them to have got up to, but they're eyeing up more. By the way, gap for the race lead. Last lap time from Fadley Rackman. Remember how I said he needed to find something special? 48.2. on the last lap time. He is finding something special, and that gap is coming down. It's 1.7 seconds at the moment. It came down nearly 8 tenths on the previous lap. He's absolutely flying right now. There he is across the line, and it's another 48.2 across the line, plays a 49.0 for Chen. You can believe it. This gap's coming down. There's a bit of lap traffic from the Axel Academy car. That one, I believe, is the number 21 of Lowe. This battle is on with just 7 minutes left to go.
Fantastic stuff. Fadley Rackman now can smell the opportunity to take a race victory. He can see the Ferrari within the same shot in his windscreen, as we wondered if lap traffic would start to play a factor in this race. Potentially it may do as of yet, as of course the car ahead, the race leader of Kelvin Chen, caught up behind the back of that Bentley Continental. So Fadley Rackman on a charge, and Dika Ramanmolana too far away from this little fight to really be interested in the battle. 13 seconds in arrears, or 13 seconds in arrears. So Ramanmolana will be holding out now for a podium position. And one person that I kind of want to go back to a second is Nabayel, who I feel sorry for. He's not really shown the pace in the number 20 car. He's been holding on to see if anything would transpire in the fight in front of him, and the second it did, he immediately got wrapped up and delayed in it to be overtaken by Woods. So Nabayel shown all the patience and actually got none of the reward.
But they did get some of the reward earlier, did that number 20 car, when the incident happened into the De La Roja, and they picked up 3 positions in one chicane. So they had their fair amount of luck with it, unfortunately. But this one, just I mean, maybe remember how we were saying with Woods being a little bit further off the back and maybe struggling a little bit. I still maintain that was not coordinated by them. They were struggling a little bit on speed to keep up, but who knows? Maybe they were playing it to sort of stay in that kind of gap. But either way, by staying that far off the back, it's really helped them to sort of get through, because they weren't too close when the incident happened. Speaking of the incident, Floyd getting a drive-through penalty there. Whoa, did not see that one coming. 4/10 of a second came down that lap time. As much as Chen has found a little bit of speed over the previous lap, yet another low 1 minute 48. This one being a 48.3 from Fadley Rackmat, and with the final 5 minutes left, it is under a second.
There must be something going on behind the wheel of Kelvin Chen to not find the speed. Maybe he's struggling to meet the fuel numbers that he needs to make to get to the checkered flag. Maybe Fadley Rackman has just dug that much deeper than is capable is his Ferrari colleague of achieving. But the end result is we've got 4.5 minutes to go of a 3-hour endurance race, and our 2 race leaders now are very much in the same piece of tarmac, very much fighting for this race victory on the racetrack. Who will it be? Will it be Kelvin Chen, our long-time race leader in the number 118? Will it be JMX Phantom's Fadley Rackmat, who is recovering following what has been a very difficult start to the race from pole position, and now very firmly in contention for this race victory? This is going to be the next 4 minutes of absolute drama here at Monza, and I cannot wait to see who comes out on top of this battle. Absolutely spectacular stuff.
And with the lap times they're doing, by the way, this will be it. They're starting the penultimate lap of the race with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. So there will only be 2 attempts into each of these corners for Fadley Rackmat to get through. So he needs to get a little bit closer. This could come down to the final lap, and how thrilling is that? After 3 hours, these will be some very sweaty hands between Kelvin Chen and Fadley Rackmat, and what a fantastic way to open the account this season. Brilliant stuff between the two. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure if this has been Kelvin Chen, like say, saving fuel or whatever. I think it's just been Fadley Rackmat, I said, finding something absolutely special. The lap times that have been pumped in, no one else is able to get even remotely close to that. Not too many are able to get into the 48s, let alone the low 48s, which Fadley Rackmat has been doing with such relentless consistency every single lap the last 5 or 6. It's been a 48-2, a 48-2, a 48-2, 48-3, 48-3, 48-3. It's been just so much, and it's just been too much for Kelvin Chen. The gaps have been coming down. Last lap time for Kelvin Chen was a 48.5. It's just not enough though. That's a great lap time. That's faster than anyone else, except that car behind.
Yep, spectacular stuff from Federley Rackmat. There's a couple of slower cars just up on the horizon as well, so maybe they'll come into play as we hit the final lap. Kelvin Chen, under all the pressure in the world, he's took this race lead. He's seen the gap progressively reduce to the car behind. He's looking at his rear view camera that you can see in that shot on his dashboard there, and that is Federley Rackmat filling that rear view camera, so Chen now knows that he's very firmly on the defensive. This is his race to lose, Federley Rackmat's race to win, as we're about to approach the final lap of the race. Federley Rackmat, his first opportunity to dive away for the race lead, firmly in the slipstream, goes to the outside. Kelvin Chen immediately on the defensive for the run down into the first corner. This is the final lap of the race. Kelvin Chen, our race leader, can he hold on to position? Federley Rackmat as close as you can possibly get into the braking zone. Chen does a good job to get the car stopped on time, gets a good job to turn it in to the corner and get a run down through the Curva Grande. Federley Rackmat still though separated as if he's been pulled along by an invisible tow rope to the back of that Ferrari. Federley Rackmat now to the outside, he crashes onto the grass, does well to keep the car running. Rackmat has not given up on this one yet, late as he can be on the brakes. He'll follow the rear of that Ferrari, separated now by purely just the paint scheme of these two cars. Federley Rackmat is risking everything he's got.
What a superb end to this race. Last lap time for Federley Rackmat was a 48.1, by the way. That's how much time he has found closing in on Kelvin Chen, who was a little bit wide there at Lesmo 1, a little bit wide there at Lesmo 2, but he's just getting the drive off down to Ascari, and it looks like it might just be enough for him to hang on. It could come down to the Parabolica, it could come down to the sprint to the line. How fitting it would be to have them separated by, well, let's be honest, the third decimal. That would to practice how close this race has been. Out of Ascari though, Kelvin Chen for Full Pace Racing is just about hanging on for now. What does Federley Rackmat have?
Superb stuff. Chen gets a good run out of Ascari, which is critical for the run down now into the Parabolica for the final time. 10 seconds left on the clock. Kelvin Chen turns the car in nice and early, might keep it to the inside of the racetrack, does not want to run out onto the marbles. The checkered flag is being ready. Kelvin Chen crosses the line, flashes the lights, takes race victory in the opening round of the SRO Esports Asia Endurance Season. Federley Rackmat puts on the attack of his life, and what a spectacular way to end the opening race of the season. Adika Ramamolana crosses the line in third position, and that was sensational.
Wow. I mean, what a way to begin things. That was incredible. A great battle between the two. More a battle of pressure. Federley Rackmat just not able to find his way through, but a worthy win there, and definitely delivered towards the end from Kelvin Chen in that 118 car. A superb stint from the pair of them. They did incredibly well. Of course, you've got to say Huang opened up the stint. It was that second stint where they built so much time that Kelvin Chen had enough to drop back into. The fact that they closed the gap down from Federley Rackmat in the final moments of the race, just super fitting. And Adika Ramamolana did well to sort of just drive around in third place, really, let's be honest. Couldn't really close up to the top lot. That 999, excellent recovery. 888 did great. Got to give a shout out to the 666 though. What a recovery to get up into sixth position to make it 666 in sixth.
Nice. As Sergei Mironenko crosses the line, fifth position. So Bakina did not quite manage to get the targeted fifth place, but as you say, a legendary good drive up in a sixth position. Woods crosses the line eventually in seventh, so that all fell very nicely indeed for Damon Woods in seventh place as well. But 3 hours of racing. We were worried, let's be honest, coming into this one with a relatively small grid and a track where it's quite easy to get the cars spread out. That was 3 hours of absolute brilliance and sensational, absolutely sensational close to that race.
What did I say at the start of the race? It's like, you don't need 25, 30, 40 cars to make a good race. You just need a couple with decent respect and great pace, and we had that from quite a few of our competitors. Let's be honest, what a superb race. Unfortunately, this one, by the way, as we take a look at some of the slow-mos at the start of the race, unfortunately the 101 being the only one to retire from the race in that Lamborghini for Predator Mavs Esports. Everyone else, I believe, at least was able to reach the checkered flag, which is superb, and obviously for some, really not separated by not much in the end of that race. And like I say, a very fitting way to open to be fair, if it continues like this, what will be a pretty incredible season. And the final moments of the race, by the way, the 35 did get a drive-through penalty. I think that might have been for track limits. That was Arwin Taruna behind the wheel, and obviously he was teammates with Truel. They got a drive-through, didn't serve it, stayed on the racetrack, which then converts it to a time penalty at the line.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate way to close out their race that drops them outside of the point scoring positions, sadly for them. But Lewis, I hate asking you this question because it's the hardest question that any commentator can ask a fellow commentator.
Oh no, driver of the day. Yeah, no, it was coming.
I'll let you off by saying you can pick team of the day if you don't want to do the driver.
Yeah, it's not an easy one because there's a lot of teams, a lot of drivers. Because if you speak of this when it comes to recovery and stuff, there's so many teams that are able to recover quite a lot. For me, that final stint from Fadli Rakhmat is just absolutely incredible. That is what a lot of drivers kind of look up to. That deliverance of constant lap times that are just. Yeah, like I said, he had to find something special, and he found something special. I'd probably lean more towards Fadli Rakhmat. It's such a hard one to pick. Of course, Kelvin Chen did well to deliver, to deal with the pressure. He only really had to deal with it for a lap. But then, if we go slightly down the order a little bit, Philippa Bakida. What a couple of stints from her, and let's say belief from Andrew Lawrenson that they could get themselves 5th, 6th place. It's what they were aiming for. It's what they got.
Yep, and to do that over a double stint as well is a very difficult task. You can get into the car originally, see how much gap you've got to make up ahead of you and think, oh, this is going to be very difficult, and over push. And Bakida did everything on point, exactly what she needed to do, showed lightning pace in a consistent way. So really impressive performance from Philippa Bakida as well. But yeah, what you're saying, it's a very, very difficult one to call, and that has been an absolutely sensational race. The triple nine machine that you're seeing on your screen there as well, the Wacko split table racing car, another very, very solid recovery drive for those as well. 4th position at the checkered flag. That's not what we expected, I think, at the start of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, from all out across the race, we've had plenty of examples of great racing, of great talent, and it shows that from the side of view over in the Asian Sprint Series and the Asian Endurance Series, where we from a sort of sim racing point of view, where most of the places where I've commentated on stuff in sim racing, it's been obviously more focused on North America and on the European world of endurance racing, or sim racing in general rather. To see the Asian side of things, it shows how much talent there is out there across the board of sim racing, and why no region on the planet can be ignored for the talent that we've got, because these drivers can very much challenge the tippy tops of sim racing, there is no doubt.
Yep, would thoroughly agree with you on that one. And having had a lesser or greater degree of involvement with the Asia Series right from its very inception back in the day, a couple of 3 years ago, it's been an eye-opener and an absolute pleasure to see some of these names that you just don't see on a regular basis because of the time zones and the ping from racing in European servers, to see how good they are and how hard they have raced. And on that topic, actually, speaking of racing hard and doing a great job, I believe we're ready to speak with our race winner, Kelvin Chen. Kelvin Chen, race winner of the opening round of the SRO Asia Esports Endurance Series. Congratulations. Oh, Kelvin, you're on mute, I think. Still can't hear you, Kelvin. First mistake of the day, but it's come off track. Hey, Kelvin, we can hear you now. Hello.
Hello.
Congratulations on a fantastic team result and race victory.
Thank you. But I really need to thank my teammate. His racing pace is really good, so it gave me some space between the race mat.
Yep, it was great stuff. Now, tell our viewers at home what sort of pressure you felt going into the closing stages with Rashmat closing and closing and closing.
I have never felt that nervous, anything like that nervous before. It's really, I'm shaking my hand and body. I can't control my brake at all, I think.
Fantastic.
It's still 1 more second. We will do 1 more lap. I definitely can't defend him.
Yeah, it was incredibly close. Now, was that all the pace you had in the car at the end of the race, or were you saving fuel or saving tyres?
No. I'm just slower than Rashmat and my teammates, like about 0.2 or to 0.5. So I just what I can do is do my best, and and I hope we don't need to do 1 more lap.
Fantastic. I mean, the pace was incredible compared to the rest of the field at the end of that race. Now, as a team, can you tell us a little bit about what you did, performance in testing and practice-wise, before this championship started? How much preparation does it take to get a race-winning pace here at Monza?
We did a lot of practice. We used Ferrari and we used Ferrari for a long time, and we have raced in Monza, so we are familiar with the car and the track. So and there is BOP, so we have to change our setup, but we prepare for weeks.
Fantastic stuff. And Kelvin, you dealt with the pressure so well towards the checkered flag. Congratulations on a sensational race victory. Very well done.
Thank you.
To the both of you.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Kelvin Chen, race winner of the opening round of the SRO Esports Asia Endurance Series here at Monza. And Lewis, you could tell how much that meant to him there. That was absolute skin of the teeth stuff right at the very end.
Yeah, what a nice chap. No, like I say, it just understood that Fadley Rackman was closing in. I mean, maybe there wasn't any more pace in the car. It doesn't matter. Did everything that was needed and dealt with the pressure well. What he's describing there, and I've kind of felt this, not like to that level, I'm absolutely sure of, the pressure from behind. When you're feeling it, you start shaking. It's uncontrollable. That's where it's so easy to be shaking whilst you're trying to press the brake. You're not pressing the brake as hard as you need to, or you're pressing it too hard. Nothing's quite right. It's so easy to make a mistake, and at no point throughout that was there a mistake made. Drove with a high level of professionalism, and like I say, a superb drive. May well have been handed a great lead from his teammate, but it was all up to him at the end of the race, and Kelvin Chen did everything he needed to do. Brilliant stuff.
And I think Kelvin did himself a disservice as well there, saying he was slow. He was absolutely one of the fastest cars on the track. It's just Rackmat was so much faster. But that was a great race, and if you enjoyed that, hey, let's do it all over again. I've got an idea. On the 13th of November, put a date in your diary. Mark it out in your calendar, because we fancy doing this at Bathurst, Mount Panorama. So 13th of November is the next round of the championship. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you to Fanatec, AWS, Pirelli, Kunos Simulazione, AK Esports, SimGrid, SRO, and of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione. Thank you to everybody involved in making this broadcast. Thank you to Lewis McGlade, and I've been Paul Jeffrey. Alongside me has been Lewis McGlade. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.